A majestic castle stands under a clear sky, hinting at a new beginning. A regal carriage waits outside the castle, attended by many uniformed guards. Emperor North Gidhide, a red-haired man, invites someone to read, his gaze serious. A light brown-haired woman, looking nervous, holds a piece of paper in front of her. Captain Johann Desat, a white-haired man, notes the frequency of an event, appearing concerned. The red-haired emperor and white-haired captain kneel, as the light brown-haired woman from behind expresses having no excuse. The light brown-haired woman, with green eyes, kindly instructs the two men to raise their heads. The light brown-haired woman smiles, ready to begin the parent-teacher conference. The white-haired captain responds affirmatively to the light brown-haired woman as the narration describes the immense authority of the red-haired emperor and the captain. Ethna Belchester, a kindergarten teacher with light brown hair, brightly asks to begin the meeting. Ethna Belchester introduces herself as the Sunlight class teacher at Rondell Kindergarten. Ethna is revealed to be a transmigrator, finding herself within the world of a novel. Ethna, the light brown-haired teacher, sighs with a hint of concern. Mirin Desat, a cheerful, pink-haired girl, greets her teacher enthusiastically. Ethna warmly returns Mirin's greeting, affectionately embracing the pink-haired girl. Ethna looks down at Mirin, who clings to her, with a somewhat pensive expression. Imperial Prince Maxion Gidhide, a red-haired boy, is introduced as the male lead. Ethna plays the piano, inviting her students, Mirin and Maxion, to sing along. The novel's original plot shows an 18-year-old Mirin heading to the terrace where Maxion awaits. Ethna observes Maxion and Mirin playing as children, realizing the novel's original plot, which featured them as adults, is now completely shattered. Ethna reflects on choosing kindergarten teaching for a living, a job from her past life. Ethna explains her dedication to kindergarten teaching, always giving her all. Mirin playfully hits Maxion, who recoils in surprise. Maxion, the red-haired boy, insults Mirin with a harsh word. Mirin, the pink-haired girl, looks shocked while talking about something becoming a frog. Mirin, the pink-haired girl, scolds Maxion for his language and hits him again. Ethna, the light brown-haired teacher, intervenes, calling out to Mirin and Maxion in alarm. Ethna closes her eyes, crying in despair over the children's behavior. Ethna desperately tries to stop the children, Mirin and Maxion, who fight fiercely with surprising efficiency. The scene transitions back to the present moment, within a grand, ornate room. Ethna, the light brown-haired homeroom teacher, thanks the visitors for the meeting and introduces herself. 2 teacups are on the table, as Ethna thinks about the guardians present. Johann Desat, Mirin's white-haired brother, encourages Ethna to speak comfortably despite his presence. Despite her internal panic, Ethna thanks the white-haired man and red-haired man for attending the meeting. Emperor North Gidhide hopes the meeting is worthwhile, while Ethna feels crushed by the immense presence of the two men. Ethna finds her resolve and decides to get straight to the point of the meeting. Ethna explains that children at this age are very active and move around often due to developing muscles. Ethna assures them that there is no major problem with their child, emphasizing the need for foundational understanding. Emperor North Gidhide, the red-haired man, expresses his impatience, noting Ethna's long introduction despite her promise to be direct. Ethna continues, explaining that children sometimes struggle to control their strength, leading to accidental injuries to others. Emperor North Gidhide furiously asks if someone dared to lay hands on a member of the imperial family, while Johann looks on gravely. Emperor North Gidhide seethes in anger, while Johann Desat calmly remarks, "Oh dear," at the situation. Johann Desat, the white-haired captain, gently laughs, observing that the young prince seems quite mischievous. Emperor North Gidhide criticizes an imperial house for not accepting criticism, while Ethna regrets bringing them together. Ethna realizes that both children, Maxion and Mirin, have been exchanging punches. Johann and North express disbelief, citing Mirin's gentle nature and Maxion's strict etiquette training. Ethna sips her tea, reflecting that she also believed in the children's good behavior when reading the original novel. Ethna exhales softly, deep in thought about the situation. Ethna worries that if their behavior continues, Mirin and Maxion will struggle to form friendships with their classmates. Ethna, the light brown-haired teacher, sits poised, hands clasped, with a contemplative expression. Captain Johann Desat, the white-haired man, and Emperor North Gidhide, the red-haired man, both look slightly perturbed. Captain Johann Desat smiles gently while sipping his tea. A trembling sound effect accompanies his gesture. Emperor North Gidhide looks down at his gloved hands, a fidgeting sound. As narration states, he is the Empire's only prince whom no one can treat carelessly. Narration continues, explaining that no one dares approach his younger siblings, a sentiment the light brown-haired teacher seems to confirm with a subtle smile. The light brown-haired teacher smiles brightly, asking for their help at home. The two men sit silently, watching the light brown-haired teacher. The light brown-haired teacher thinks the silent men are parenting rookies, then reconsiders, calling them gentle beasts compared to other guardians. The light brown-haired teacher thinks it's crucial to hold the reins firmly in such situations, announcing that they will continue as the two men appear troubled. Captain Johann Desat smiles charmingly, adjusting his glove. The light brown-haired teacher asks Emperor North Gidhide for his response. Emperor North Gidhide, looking distressed, holds his head. The light brown-haired teacher's green eyes widen in surprise. The light brown-haired teacher firmly instructs the red-haired man that he must speak directly with Maxion. The red-haired man asks the teacher if she truly knows who he is. A teacup glitters with light, and Efna replies, acknowledging the red-haired man as the sky of the Empire. The red-haired man asks if Efna also knows how much time he set aside to be there, while Efna inwardly thinks he is starting a power struggle again. Efna, the light brown-haired teacher, smiles, stating she believes he will give Maxion more attention since he made time, and thinks, "What? Why? If you don't like it, then hang me for it." Feeling fearless for having lived through death once, the red-haired man sighs heavily, leaning over the table. Efna, the light brown-haired teacher, stands over the red-haired man, who stares in surprise. Then Efna looks back at him. Efna thinks she might have been too careless, acknowledging he's still the emperor, while the red-haired man concludes that the teacher is right. Captain Johann Desat smiles, remarking that someone making excuses and neglecting family is pathetic, making Efna react with alarm and wonder about his smug look. Captain Johann Desat smiles, seeming to imply he is not guilty himself. Efna tells Captain Johann Desat that the same goes for him, causing him to look surprised. Efna, looking serious, instructs both men to discuss their children's kindergarten life with them, with narration explaining this is an occupational disease where one must speak despite the risk of being struck down. Narration describes this as a desperate struggle not to be swayed during a parent-teacher conference. The red-haired man and white-haired man sit silently, appearing deep in thought. Efna sips her tea, reflecting that the men's deep thought is only natural, given the circumstances. A door creaks open with a creak sound, as a teacup sits on the table. A cheerful pink-haired girl, Miran, enters the room, and Efna asks her name. Captain Johann Desat fondly refers to Miran as his clingy little sister, and invites her to come closer. Miran's small feet hurry across the floor. Captain Johann Desat smiles sweetly as Miran approaches him, a shing sound accompanying the heartwarming moment. Miran enthusiastically declares her love for Efna, who looks surprised. Efna smiles warmly at Miran. Miran, looking worried, asks if her brother will get scolded because of her, while Efna finds her cute and reassures her that she was just praising her, and Miran, looking surprised, confirms with Efna, who then affirms it. Emperor North Gidhide angrily tells someone they cannot just barge in, while Efna looks on with a confused expression. Maxion, the red-haired boy, peeks from the door with wide, surprised eyes, calling out, "Your Majesty?" Emperor North Gidhide scolds Maxion for his rudeness towards his classmate, causing Maxion to look down in shame while Marin watches from behind Efna. Maxion quickly apologizes to Emperor North Gidhide, hiding behind Efna, as Myron excitedly whispers that Maxion is in trouble. Captain Johann Desat, shown in grayscale, thinks that the Knight Commander was brushed off by his little sister. Efna smiles brightly, suggesting they end the session, as the children seem to have grown tired of waiting. Captain Johann Desat, with a serious expression and a cat ear-like adornment, tells Emperor North Gidhide he has something to discuss privately, to which the Emperor responds with a curious, while Efna smiles subtly in the background. Efna looks up at Emperor North Gidhide, thinking about his height. Marin and Maxion, holding hands, explain that teacher vibes told us to get out. Efna tries to speak to Emperor North Gidhide, noticing his close proximity and feeling a blush. The red-haired man steps closer, startling Efna as she attempts to address him, a startled sound accompanying her reaction. Efna smiles nervously, telling the red-haired man that he is a bit too close. Efna's hands are shown touching the red-haired man's adorned chest, a pat sound accompanying the contact. Efna's face fills with shock and wide-eyed alarm. Efna, the light brown-haired teacher, looks up at Emperor North Gidhide in wide-eyed shock, realizing she accidentally touched his chest. Emperor North Gidhide, the red-haired man, calmly meets the light brown-haired teacher's gaze. Captain Johann Desat, the white-haired man, notes a creaking keek sound as he touches a book, thinking the old shelf looks like it will fall off. Emperor North Gidhide, the red-haired man, gestures towards the light brown-haired teacher's head, who nervously dismisses his implied concern with a ha-ah sound. The light brown-haired teacher clears her throat with an ahem sound, then hesitantly explains she needs to discuss how they address each other. Emperor North Gidhide, the red-haired man, questions if she means addressing between just the two of them. The light brown-haired teacher explains the importance of a proper guardian-teacher relationship in education, stating that to achieve it, the light brown-haired teacher smiles brightly, suggesting she be called Miss Teacher. Emperor North Gidhide, the red-haired man, thoughtfully repeats, Teacher. The light brown-haired teacher smiles, assuring him it's not that hard. Emperor North Gidhide, the red-haired man, looks intensely uncomfortable, grimacing as he again mutters, Teacher. The light brown-haired teacher smiles kindly, her eyes closed in encouragement. Emperor North Gidhide, the red-haired man, finally says, Miss Teacher, which the delighted light brown-haired teacher praises as very good and instructs him to use at the kindergarten. The light brown-haired teacher, with a finger raised, emphasizes another important point, to always push forward even when feeling intimidated. The light brown-haired teacher smiles brightly and introduces mutual formal addressing, explaining that it means avoiding informal speech in front of children, much to Emperor North Gidhide's visible distress with the BB2 sound. Emperor North Gidhide, the red-haired man, sits silently, looking down in deep thought. Emperor North Gidhide, the red-haired man, looks up with a slight smirk and a thoughtful expression. The light brown-haired teacher smiles sweetly and nods, affirming, Yes. Emperor North Gidhide, the red-haired man, looking at the light brown-haired teacher, cryptically says, Sometime. The light brown-haired teacher smiles brightly, asking if he means the Imperial Palace, and suggests he consider it a home visit. The light brown-haired teacher internally wonders if Emperor North Gidhide's invitation to the Imperial Palace is a romantic advance, but dismisses the idea of a parent making such overtures. The light brown-haired teacher firmly states she cannot have private meetings with the student's guardian, while Emperor North Gidhide remarks that she's the first teacher to label a home visit a private meeting. Emperor North Gidhide, the red-haired man, looks intently at Efna, saying, A reason, you ask? A close-up shows Emperor North Gidhide's intense, focused gaze, his eyes shadowed. The light brown-haired teacher looks surprised as the red-haired man's gloved hand reaches up towards her, a suuk sound accompanying the gesture. Emperor North Gidhide, the red-haired man, gently cups the light brown-haired teacher's face, their faces in close proximity. Emperor North Gidhide, the red-haired man, states he has many things to find out and questions if there are too many listening ears nearby. The light brown-haired teacher blushes, internally thinking he is mostly talking about Maxion. Emperor North Gidhide, the red-haired man, informs the light brown-haired teacher that she had confetti by her ear, startling her into a surprised Yobio sound, and a thank you. Emperor North Gidhide, the red-haired man, smiles confidently as he bids goodbye, Miss Teacher. The light brown-haired teacher looks wide-eyed, internally wondering why he got so close, as Emperor North Gidhide walks away with Geobiok sounds. The light brown-haired teacher stands alone, looking pensive and slightly flustered after the Emperor's departure. Rain falls heavily with a SSSAAA sound as a person's voice asks if they heard the story. Two maids gossip about the master, adding Lady Lillian, a mistress's daughter, to the family register after only a month at the mansion. A maid asks why adding Lady Lillian is important, and another maid dramatically replies that Lady Lillian has that. Amidst crackling light, a maid clarifies that Lady Lillian possesses talent. The dark-haired maid tells the other maid to stop talking, scoffing at the idea of a Winster without talent. The dark-haired maid states that Lady Lillian is far more than just talented. A maid exclaims, "Goodness gracious," as a ghostly, glowing image of a light brown-haired woman appears, surrounded by a faint halo. The ghostly image of Efna, the light brown-haired woman, looking distressed, asks what it means to be a Winster, while a maid calls out, "Lady Efna." Efna, the light brown-haired woman, desperately questions what Winster means, feeling she will lose her mind if she doesn't find out. A maid rudely tells the light brown-haired woman to go inside, finding her babbling annoying, while the light brown-haired woman internally laments being treated like a stray dog's bone despite being a lady. A maid questions the light brown-haired woman's unusual behavior, then speculates if it's because she asked about the talent they were discussing, while the light brown-haired woman's expression turns smug. The light brown-haired woman thinks she has truly gotten stuck in the wrong web novel this time, as two maids look on in confusion. The scene transitions with a circular thought bubble stating, but, the light brown-haired woman, now in a dark setting, looks contemplative with a who sound. The light brown-haired woman, now in a different outfit and with a confident smile, declares her serious occupational hazard. She cannot let a rude child off the hook. A mysterious voice with a boom sound asks, "Now then, who wants to be the first?" Lightning flashes across a building silhouette with a powerful JJA rung sound, intensifying the dramatic atmosphere. Two maids look terrified as the light brown-haired woman's voice continues to sit in the thinking chair. A magnificent, light-colored mansion with classical columns stands bathed in bright sunlight under a clear, blue sky. Abstract silhouettes illustrate different talents. A woman with a beautiful voice, someone with excellent physical ability, and a man with a knack for business, all standing out. A grand red banner, adorned with gold, signifies the Winchester Count family's long history, whose talents earned them a place among central nobility. However, a light brown-haired girl with long hair and a sad expression sits alone in a room, as narration reveals the family's first child without any talent has been born. The light brown-haired girl, Efna, looks worried and concerned, her expression conveying a sense of unease. Efna thinks that her possession was a mistake, realizing she is in the Winchester family story but before the main characters are even born. Efna, looking distressed, identifies herself as the talentless Efna Winchester, a 17-year-old girl unrelated to the main character. A close-up shows clasped hands, conveying a feeling of apprehension or discomfort. A small, light brown-haired girl, Efna, is seen from a distance as a voice calls out to her, "Sister Efna, here you are." A cheerful, pink-haired girl, Lillian, announces she has been looking everywhere for Efna, revealing she is Efna's dazzling half-sister. Lillian, flanked by two dark-haired men described as annoying older brothers, approaches Efna, who looks at Lillian, asking what she wants. Lillian takes Efna's hand, eagerly suggesting they eat together because their father promised delicious food, surprising Efna, who questions the sudden invitation. Efna glances at a plate of dried-up food, internally reflecting that their father has only ever given them such meals. Lillian, with a bright smile, suggests inviting Efna's fiancé, Marquis Vilchin, to which Efna, looking flustered, replies he went to his territory yesterday. Lillian looks down, appearing disappointed, prompting Efna to internally wonder why her half-sister is upset. A brown-haired man with a dark vest scolds Efna for not covering for her fiancé, making Efna look surprised and question his words. The brown-haired man appears angry, thinking this is nonsense and an unprovoked venting of anger, while Efna wonders why no one points out his irrational behavior. Efna internally questions why she should have to cover for her own fiancé. The brown-haired man grabs Efna's wrist with a sharp smack, angrily asking if she's out of her mind, as an unseen person firmly commands, "Enough." The brown-haired man with a mustache, identified as Father, intervenes, taking Efna's hand as the other brown-haired man looks on. Father sternly calls Efna, and as she begins to reply, a sharp crack sounds, implying a forceful blow. Efna looks stunned and blushes, framed in a purple glow, after the impact. In a bedroom with Father, Lillian, and the two brothers present, Efna thinks about how she was slapped over something so trivial. Father, with a stern expression, tells Efna that without talent, she should live as if dead, noting Lillian has manifested another talent, unlike her. Father proudly describes Lillian's talent, stating she hit 6 out of 10 shots on her first try, proving she shares the talent of the first Count Winchester, and that today's outing is to celebrate this. Father angrily confronts Efna, scolding her for ruining his daughter's mood on a day meant for rejoicing. Efna, blushing and distressed, questions her status as his daughter, asking what she, Efna, truly means to him. Efna's hand clenches as she internally struggles, thinking she should argue and get angry. Efna thinks her body is too conditioned to move, while Lillian sweetly tells father not to worry and suggests they leave sister to rest because she's hungry, to which father agrees. Father assures Lillian they will do everything she wants today, including going to a dress shop, as Efna watches them walk away with soft thudding sounds. Efna looks downcast, thinking she is lower than a bug in this house. Efna stands outside, amidst green foliage, looking pensive and quiet. Efna appreciates the outdoor space, thinking no one will bother her here, and that it doesn't smell or leak water, unlike her room. Efna muses whether smashing something would make her feel better, and considers trying to shoot a gun resting on a wooden table. A close-up shows a revolver on the table with a metallic click. Efna squints one eye, aims the revolver, and steadies her breath. Efna exclaims "wow" as she recoils from the gun's kickback, surprised by its unexpected recoil. Efna looks surprised and thoughtful after firing the gun. The target reveals a bullseye, making Efna wonder if it was just luck, while also feeling a little better despite the loud sound. Efna decides she must hurry back to avoid being caught and hit again. Abstract white and gray lines with sparkling dots appear on a dark background. The scene transitions to the grand exterior of Marquis Vilchin's residence at night, illuminated by many lights under a dark sky. A hand writes diligently with a pen in a large, open book, accompanied by the sound of a pen clicking. Efna yawns, stretching as she continues to work on paperwork by candlelight, late into the night. Efna reflects on the passing time, noting it's the 29th, lamenting her days are filled with bride lessons, and nights with paperwork, feeling like a servant. Efna's mouth is covered, thinking about Haldness and the chapped lips she might get from talking so much. Haldness, a brown-haired man, compliments Efna's beauty, saying he couldn't hold back, and Efna internally identifies him as her fiancé. Lillian, the pink-haired girl, looks surprised and ecstatic as she exclaims, "Lillian." Efna, holding a candle, wonders why Haldness and Lillian are acting this way, questioning if she is really prettier than her sister Efna. Haldness looks at Efna with a slight smirk, calling out her name, Efna. The light brown-haired woman, Efna, holding a candle, thinks about Haldness's declaration that his engagement to her was merely a means to marry Lillian. A shimmering, dark background with crackled patterns highlights a dramatic and foreboding atmosphere. A white-haired woman with blue eyes and a pleasant expression looks to the right. A white-haired woman with a partially obscured face looks downwards, conveying a somber or contemplative mood. Haldness, the brown-haired man, intimately tells Lillian, the pink-haired girl, that his engagement to Efna was nothing more than a way to marry her. Lillian, resting against Haldness, expresses that his past engagement to Efna is hard to endure, admitting she gets jealous. Efna, holding a candle in a darkened room surrounded by thorny roses, hears a voice warning her to stick to her current path because she possesses no talent. The candle falls with a thud, extinguishing its flame as Efna groans in deep distress in the darkness. Efna cries out, struggling to breathe in the dark night, overcome by an overwhelming emotional and physical distress. Efna feels dizzy and a strong urge to vomit from an empty stomach, tears forming in her eyes, expressing that it hurts. Efna clutches her chest, red with a painful blush, surrounded by glowing, web-like energy as she gasps in agonizing pain. A person on horseback frantically calls out "My lady," as a horse gallops under the moonlight towards Efna. Efna screams for the horse to move, her eyes wide with terror as it rushes directly towards her. Abstract pink and purple lines with splatters dramatically signify a powerful impact or violent event, implying Efna was struck. Efna gasps, awakening abruptly in bed, breathing heavily and looking shocked as a purple glow surrounds her. Efna sits up in bed, still gasping for air, as a dark-haired maid asks what scared her. The dark-haired maid, sitting beside Efna in bed, rudely tells her to stop collapsing all the time, calling it a nuisance. Efna looks confused in her room, wondering if she was hit by a carriage, despite waking up in her bed. Efna touches her cheek, looking startled and confused about her current situation. Efna asks the dark-haired maid what day it is, prompting the maid to scold her and reveal it's the 4th of the imperial calendar. Efna is stunned, realizing it's the 4th, not the 29th, as she notices a brown-haired man opening her room door. The brown-haired man, Haldness, expresses worry to Efna about her sudden collapse, which she acknowledges as her fiancé. Efna, looking flustered in bed, asks Haldness why he is there, to which he replies they just had a meal together. Efna realizes that if Haldness is here, it truly is the fourth, leading her to question if she regressed to the time before her death. Haldness happily touches Efna's head, talking incessantly, as she internally struggles to gather her thoughts through his noise. Efna, sitting in bed, directly asks Haldness to leave, stating he is too noisy. Efna looks intently at Haldness after requesting his departure. Haldness looks surprised, questioning if Efna has become dumber. Haldness, now standing, tells Efna she must still be in pain and bids her farewell, promising to see her later. Efna, alone in her room, touches her head thoughtfully, deciding there is only one course of action left for her. Two maids gossip about Lady Efna acting crazy again and wonder why she cannot live quietly. Efna, wearing a brown dress, startles a maid by appearing before her and questioning their idleness. Efna, holding documents, demands the maid let her speak with father, but the maid refuses, prompting Efna's eyes to glow with fierce determination. The two maids recoil in terror against a patterned background, clearly frightened by Efna's intensity. Father, a red-haired man with a mustache, opens a door, asking about the commotion, as a maid nervously tries to explain about my lady. Efna, facing her father, confidently tells him his timing is perfect as it saves her the trouble of going inside. Efna smiles, sparkling, and asks her father if he specifically came looking for her. Father, a red-haired man, looks surprised and calls out Efna's name. Haldness, the brown-haired man, holds Efna's hand, asking her about the application for expulsion from the family registry. Haldness shouts that Efna is not in her right mind and insists they beg the count for treatment, reaching out to her. Haldness looks shocked as Efna announces she also has something to give him. Efna presents a letter of annulment, explicitly stating, "I don't need a husband like you." Haldness questions the letter, and Efna calmly instructs him to read it, confirming it is indeed a letter of annulment. Haldness looks distressed and confused, questioning the meaning of the letter. Efna, standing before Haldness and two maids, confidently declares that she wishes to call off the engagement. Lillian, the pink-haired girl, bursts in asking what is happening, as Efna smiles, acknowledging her presence. In a purple-framed memory, Efna, holding onto her distressed father, tells Lillian to take it, referring to her discarded life. Lillian, the pink-haired girl, looks on as Efna's inner thoughts reveal she is abandoning her place in her fiancé. Efna smiles brightly, internally declaring that she is throwing away everything she once had. A gray-haired man in a dark suit stands by a curtain as a light brown-haired girl in a pink dress walks away. Two dark-haired maids gossip, wondering why Efna's fiancé is now being given to the distraught pink-haired Lillian. An unseen voice continues to gossip, asking Lillian if she knows the rumor about last time, as Lillian appears deeply troubled. Efna, with light brown hair and green eyes, looks pensive, thinking with a slight sigh that she went and did it. A chibi Efna clenches her fist, internally declaring that she will truly lose her mind if she stays any longer. Efna, with light brown hair, opens a wooden closet, thinking she should at least pack her things. Efna, with light brown hair, turns a page in a book, reflecting that today she is certain. Efna continues to read from the open book, thinking that she, like the first Count Winchester, possesses a special talent. Efna, with light brown hair and green eyes, looks surprised as she reads the book, pondering if this is truly the talent of the first Count Winchester. Efna questions if it was Lillian who possessed that talent, noting she felt no special ability after waking up in this body, and decides to read further. Efna recalls secretly playing her father's violin and being able to perform a street tune she once heard, while a gun is also shown. Efna reflects on her past, remembering that even though the letters were unfamiliar, she was soon able to read them. Efna, with light brown hair and green eyes, looks wide-eyed and surprised, wondering if all these mysterious abilities are connected. A woman with long, flowing purple hair, wearing a dark purple dress, stands with a shimmering light around her. Efna, with long, light brown hair flowing, smiles gently, bathed in a soft, sparkling light. Efna, with her long, light brown hair tied with a red ribbon, smiles brightly while carrying a dark brown suitcase, ready for a new beginning. Efna recounts how Viscount Belchester appeared as a savior and took her in when she was trembling and running away from her family. Efna thinks about how she got a job to help with the family finances, which were not abundant, as she looks at a building. Efna arrives at the nearly collapsed Rundell Kindergarten, gazing at its dilapidated sign. Efna, with light brown hair and green eyes, beams with energetic determination, ready to embrace her new role. As magical engineering advanced, Efna is shown teaching students, reflecting how nobles began to value education previously deemed shameful. The academy transformed into a true institution of learning, and 2 years later, a kindergarten boom swept the empire. Efna, radiating happiness, stands at the heart of the thriving kindergarten movement, teaching children. Efna, with light brown hair and green eyes, looks off to the side with a gentle, slightly pensive expression amidst sparkling light. Viscount Belchester invites Efna to a charity masquerade ball, and she expresses concern about being recognized. Viscount Belchester, looking concerned, reassures Efna not to worry if it troubles her, then muses about the nature of a masquerade. Efna, with a bright smile, happily declares she will attend the ball, realizing there is no problem since it's a masquerade. Efna internally concedes that she cannot refuse the invitation because she owes Viscount Belchester so much. Efna, masked and elegant in a red dress, holds a champagne glass at the bustling charity masquerade. Efna finds the masquerade boring, thinking about her work back home, when she is suddenly interrupted by a sharp, "Hey!" An unseen voice demands an apology for stepping on a foot, while Efna, observing a surprised red-haired boy, wonders if they are kids' voices. A small, dark-haired boy denies stepping on someone, only to be sternly told by an unseen person not to talk back. Efna observes, realizing several kids are ganging up on a smaller one, as an unseen voice demands to know if they recognize him. The small, dark-haired boy defiantly replies, "Nope," to the unseen questioner, looking surprised. The red-haired boy angrily scolds the dark-haired boy for talking back, as Efna, concerned, fears the situation will turn violent. Efna carefully places her champagne glass down with a tap, her masked face revealing no emotion. Efna warns a surprised blonde-haired woman not to intervene, instructing her to stay put like everyone else. Efna, with a serious expression, thinks about the central noble children, noting they appear to be around 8 years old. Efna pointedly tells the surprised blonde-haired woman to keep quiet. Efna's red-dressed foot steps down with a click, drawing the startled attention of the 4 young boys below. Efna, with arms outstretched and a stern expression, yells at the surprised boys to stop that right now. 2 boys, confused, ask Efna who she is and if she doesn't know who they are. Masked adults observe, one thinking Efna is brave, while another thinks it's more like stupidity. The red-haired boy angrily declares his father is Marquis Gopin and threatens to tell him everything. Efna confidently tells the boy to call Danian, stating it's about time she paid him a visit. The boys look terrified, stammering before recognizing Efna as their teacher Efna. Efna's expression is firm and determined, her eyes narrowed with resolve. 3 masked women look on in shock as a wave of realization or impact spreads through the scene. The boys are stunned, recognizing Efna as the famous teacher who's so good with kids, as she smiles triumphantly. Efna, with a fierce smile, names Danian, Hatchel, and Ripel, scolding them for not greeting their teacher properly and for cornering someone as a group. The red-haired boy, the brown-haired boy, and the dark-haired boy look terrified as Efna questions if that's what their teacher taught them. The pink-haired woman smiles at the trembling boys, asking if it was scary to be scolded, while Bantadi's voice from below is heard. Efna looks surprised, questioning the sudden interjection with a, "Huh?" The dark-haired masked man, adorned in a fur-trimmed cloak with elaborate chains, stands with a serious expression. The small dark-haired boy, Bantade, joyfully exclaims, "Big brother!" The masked man asks Bantad what's going on, and the small dark-haired boy hesitantly replies, "Ugh, big brother, it's just..." Efna, looking surprised, internally wonders if the masked man is Bantade's brother and notes his overwhelming pressure. 3 masked women observe, and the blonde-haired woman internally notes how the chatty nobles instantly silenced themselves. Bantade admits, "We fought," while the masked man looks surprised, questioning, "Fought?" Efna introduces herself as the children's teacher to the masked man, assuring him the fight wasn't major and parents would arrive soon. The masked man cynically suggests the parents are crawling over, but Efna corrects him, stating, "No, they're people, so I expect they'll walk here." Efna bows her head, sincerely apologizing to the masked man as their teacher, with Bantade standing by his side. Efna firmly addresses Danian, Hatchel, and Ripel by name, as Danian nervously responds, "Why, yes," and she declares that bullying is entirely their fault. The masked man smirks, thinking, HMPH, well, and identifies the father as Marquis Eliard Gopin. Marquis Gopin, hugging Danian, looks surprised and asks, "Did you just say Marquis Gopin?" The masked man refers to Gopin as a pathetic fool for not controlling his child, prompting Marquis Gopin to angrily demand, "WH, what did you just say?" Marquis Gopin angrily points at the masked man, questioning if he is insane and dares to speak to him in such a way. The masked man calmly states he heard Gopin's son picked a fight with his little brother, then questions if House Gopin doesn't teach that a fight they can't win is sheer folly. The masked man dramatically removes his mask, shocking Marquis Gopin, who gasps, "Ha!" Two masked women look on in shock as Marquis Gopin stammers in terror, trying to identify the man as that man is D. The unmasked man is revealed as Duke Caden Hildebaun, his name stated in a dramatic realization. Marquis Gopin bows profoundly, cradling his crying son Danian, offering Duke Caden Hildebaun his deepest apologies. Efna observes Gopin bowing and internally acknowledges the significant difference in rank between a duke and a marquis. Efna looks pensive, repeatedly murmuring Hildebaun as she ponders the duke's identity. Efna's eyes widen in stark black and white shock. A decorative frame highlights Efna's internal shock as she realizes that Grand Duchy of Hildebon, Duke Caden Hildebaun, is shown in a close-up, surrounded by sparkling light and blue roses, exuding a powerful aura. Duke Caden Hildebaun is depicted as a shadowy silhouette with glowing eyes against a dark purple background, conveying a sinister presence. The shadowy Duke Caden Hildebaun internally remarks on someone's unpleasant and boring appearance as a gun is visible in the foreground. A small, dark-haired boy, Bantade, looks wide-eyed and bewildered. A powerful burst of blue energy and lightning displays the ominous title, the Prince of Terror. Efna smiles, internally wondering if the cute child Bantade transformed into the Prince of Terror she knew, questioning what happened to him as he grew up. A masked woman in a green dress stumbles and falls with a clatter, while Bantad points to her, telling his brother, "Brother, someone fell down over there." Duke Caden Hildebaun dismisses Bantade's observation with a "so?" to which Bantade asks if they shouldn't help her. Duke Caden Hildebaun sternly tells Bantade, "That's not your problem to solve," and Achibi Efna internally thinks she knows who he learned such things from. Efna pauses, deep in thought, with a Efna addresses Duke Caden Hildebaun, asking, "May I add something?" Duke Caden Hildebaun looks at Efna, granting her permission to speak by saying, quote, "What is it?" "Speak." Efna stands determinedly beside Duke Caden Hildebaun, swallowing with a gulp, and states, "Still, I have to say what I have to say." Efna looks intently at the Duke, who gives a T-esque of displeasure as she swallows nervously. Duke Caden Hildebaun smiles slightly, looking at Efna and calling her teacher. Efna, surrounded by suitcases, regrets her wishy-washy behavior, wishing she had talked to him more yesterday. Efna gazes out a window, reflecting with a wistful wheeing that she shouldn't have let the original villain Bantade go like that. Efna sighs, and a dark-haired maid approaches, announcing, "Ah, Teacher Efna, you were here. Please take a look at this." Efna asks if it's a book, and the maid confirms, stating she found it while cleaning the library. The maid explains the book was written in an ancient language, and she couldn't read it, asking if Efna knew about it, to which Efna replies, "Let me see." Efna looks wide-eyed and surprised, with a expression as she reads the book. Efna has an internal realization. This isn't an ancient language. Efna is astonished, exclaiming, "It's Korean?" upon seeing the text in the open book. Efna, with light brown hair, asks a dark-haired maid if she can borrow a book, and the maid grants permission, requesting its return before the faculty meeting. Efna, standing in a grand library, wonders why such a book exists in their library, and even in this world. Efna, with light brown hair, looks down at the open book with a pensive expression, contemplating its true nature. Efna, seen from behind, turns her head sharply, wondering in shock if she misread something in the book. A close-up shows Efna's hand holding open the book, revealing Korean text, as sparkling light and a lightning effect emanate from the page. Efna's eye widens in surprise as she reads, with the open book below her, reacting to the shocking content. Efna, glowing with internal light, reads the book's narrative describing Efna Windister as the world's most evil woman, who wanted to kill the Saintess, while Ethna internally protests, claiming she is too busy. The book's narrative describes the villainess's neck in a guillotine, with a crowd gathered to witness her final moments. Ethna Windister is sentenced to death for black magic, and Imperial Knights will be dispatched to the Hilleborn Grand Duchy for collaboration. A sudden, intense internal thought exclaims, "Wait, wait," amidst a burst of purple energy, signaling Ethna's growing realization. Ethna, reading the book in a shocked daze, reacts to being sentenced to death for using black magic. As rain falls outside, Ethna, with a worried expression, studies the book, fixating on the mention of the Hilleborn Grand Duchy. Outside a grand building, rain pours, while an ominous narration reveals the reason for Bantade's corruption. Ethna, with light brown hair, smiles warmly, making a recommendation for Bantade's enrollment in the Rondel kindergarten. Ethna addresses the dark-haired man, Duke Caden Hildebrand, the Grand Duke, as he stands with a serious demeanor amid sparkling roses. Ethna, with light brown hair, sits across from Duke Caden Hildebrand, presenting documents and asking him to review them positively. Ethna, with a determined smile, internally urges Duke Caden Hildebrand to enroll Bantade, driven by her need to prevent his little brother from becoming the main antagonist. Duke Caden Hildebrand, a dark-haired man, looks thoughtfully at the documents Ethna presented. A dark, bloody narrative warns of the corruption that stems from your death, against a background of red spikes. A dark-haired man, seemingly Duke Caden Hildebrand, lies dead in a pool of blood. A grim vision from the book. Duke Caden Hildebrand, a dark-haired man, looks up from the documents with a stern expression and firmly states his refusal. Ethna, with light brown hair, looks wide-eyed and surprised, uttering a soft, "huh," in response to the Duke's rejection. Ethna argues their kindergarten is a professional educational institution helpful to Bantade, but Duke Caden Hildebrand counters that Bantade already receives professional education. Ethna internally declares she must intervene, then passionately argues for Bantade's need for social skills and peer interaction, while Duke Caden Hildebrand seems unmoved. Duke Caden Hildebrand's hand adjusts his shirt collar with a swift movement. Ethna, with a bright smile, asks Duke Caden Hildebrand to re-examine the documents, while internally wondering why he's suddenly unbuttoning his shirt. Ethna explains that if Bantade is accepted, he will be assigned to her class. Duke Caden Hildebrand, a dark-haired man, runs a hand through his hair, explaining that Bantade is his half-brother, and he worries about him being ostracized as an illegitimate child. Ethna, smiling reassuringly, extends her hand and asks Duke Caden Hildebrand to look at the last page of the documents. Duke Caden Hildebrand, a dark-haired man, looks intently downwards, presumably at the documents Ethna mentioned. Children from Ethna's class are shown diligently writing and drawing, preparing their letters. Ethna, with light brown hair, smiles brightly, proudly announcing that the kids in her class wrote letters to welcome Bantade. A cheerful, pink-haired child from Ethna's class laughs happily while holding one of the welcome letters. Duke Caden Hildebrand, a dark-haired man, holds up a child's letter, misreading it and asking if it says "Ba Tent" without his knowing. Ethna, rendered in black and white, reacts with a confused ellipsis, hearing the Duke's misreading. Duke Caden Hildebrand, a dark-haired man, holds up another letter, which contains the name Park Tent. Ethna, in black and white, reacts with a surprised expression and ellipsis, realizing the Duke's continued misreading of Bantade's name. Duke Caden Hildebrand, a dark-haired man, holds up the letter, clarifying that he only read to Park Tent so far. Ethna, with light brown hair, smiles happily, appearing pleased with the conversation's progress. Duke Caden Hildebrand, a dark-haired man, glances away with a slight smirk, internally thinking about the misspelling Park Tent and deeming it petty. Ethna, speaking to Duke Caden Hildebrand, shares news about the Grand Duchy, noting his efforts in educating his territory's people. Duke Caden Hildebrand, a dark-haired man, smiles knowingly as he leans back, surrounded by glowing white flowers. A close-up of Duke Caden Hildebrand's tense posture shows an internal thought about how terrifying it looks, like it's about to explode, begging for mercy. Ethna, with light brown hair, continues to argue, mentioning the Empire's investment in early education regardless of status, as Duke Caden Hildebrand grimaces. Duke Caden Hildebrand, a dark-haired man, looks at Ethna with a thoughtful smile, asking what she is truly trying to convey. Ethna, with light brown hair, smiles confidently, stating that to establish a good educational institution in the Grand Duchy, he needs to understand kindergartens. Duke Caden Hildebrand, a dark-haired man seen from behind Ethna, acknowledges her reference and remarks on her confidence, his face in shadow. Duke Caden Hildebrand, a dark-haired man, leans forward with clasped hands and a slight smirk as he explains the admissions process. Efna, with light brown hair, smiles brightly and happily, satisfied with the apparent outcome of her efforts. A small, dark-haired boy, Bantade Hildebrand, stands politely, introducing himself and offering a respectful greeting. The pink-haired child, Mirren, excitedly misidentifies the small, dark-haired boy, calling him Parktent, which the light brown-haired woman, Efna, gently corrects. A red-haired boy clarifies, "That's not it either. No, my name is Bantad," while the small, dark-haired boy, Bantade, looks bewildered, and an internal thought notes his struggle with his own name. Children eagerly call out for the small, dark-haired boy, Bantade, to sit next to them, as the light brown-haired woman, Efna, smiles happily at the commotion. The light brown-haired woman, Efna, directs the small, dark-haired boy, Bantade, to sit by Maxion, then announces it's story time for everyone. The light brown-haired woman, Efna, pauses with a quizzical, "Oh?" as if surprised by something unseen. A hand with a white sleeve holds a formal letter sealed with red wax, prompting the light brown-haired woman, Efna, to realize it's from the Imperial Palace. The light brown-haired woman, Efna, sits at a desk, confirming that the field trip location has finally been changed. A dark-haired woman with glasses sits pensively as a speech bubble announces that the field trip will now be held at the Imperial Palace. The light brown-haired woman, Efna, questions why their carefully planned park trip is changing, but the dark-haired woman with glasses explains they cannot refuse the Imperial Palace's proposal. The light brown-haired woman, Efna, smiles wryly, realizing that the change means redoing all the surveys and plans. The light brown-haired woman, Efna, reacts dramatically to the mention of new surveys, claiming her house is scheduled to catch fire today. The light brown-haired woman, Efna, continues her humorous excuses to avoid overtime, declaring that her pet sea slater is sick, while a dark-haired woman with glasses smiles. The light brown-haired woman, Efna, laughs nervously, observing that everyone seems busy, implying they are all trying to avoid the extra work. A sunny exterior shot of a building with bright, shimmering light, signaling a transition in time or location. The light brown-haired woman, Efna, appears distressed, lamenting that her luxurious holiday has turned into extra work. The light brown-haired woman, Efna, walks along a building, sighing about the Imperial Palace's distance and the world's lack of taxis. The light brown-haired woman, Efna, reacts with a surprised, to something off-panel. The light brown-haired woman, Efna, asks about the Hilpin's temple, and a dark-haired man with a mustache, the carriage driver, quotes her 57 fur for the ride. A white-haired man with blue eyes smiles warmly, stating that he will be in her care. The light brown-haired woman, Efna, internally identifies the white-haired man as Marin's brother and the knight commander, Johann. The light brown-haired woman, Efna, observes the carriage driver happily overcharging the white-haired man, Johann, who silently endures his complaint about the temple's fare. The white-haired man, Johann, approaches Efna from behind, asking, what? While the dark-haired man with a mustache, the carriage driver, looks startled. The white-haired man, Johann, cheerfully greets, "Teacher Efna," and she smiles, returning his greeting as guardian and expressing surprise at their encounter. The light brown-haired woman, Efna, maintains a pleasant smile but has an internal thought beginning with, "But." The light brown-haired woman, Efna, confronts the dark-haired man with a mustache, the carriage driver, about his inflated 57 fare to the temple, startling him into a defensive reply. The light brown-haired woman, Efna, apologizes to the dark-haired man with a mustache for her inability to keep a straight face. The light brown-haired woman, Efna, smiles sweetly, internally revealing her strong dislike for people who overcharge. The dark-haired man with a mustache, the carriage driver, looks shocked by Efna's words about overcharging, internally labeling her as trouble. The white-haired man, Johann, looks confused and asks, "Overcharging?" as the dark-haired man with a mustache, the carriage driver, gestures in frustration, and Efna stands firm. A close-up shows the distressed and flustered expression of the dark-haired man with a mustache, the carriage driver. The light brown-haired woman, Efna, confidently tells the carriage driver they should cut the price by 10 and agree on 47 fare. The dark-haired man with a mustache, the carriage driver, protests that 47 fur won't even cover horse feed, but the light brown-haired woman, Efna, firmly reiterates, 47 fur. A visual depiction illustrates the negotiation, with the carriage driver's offers dropping from 55 to 50 fear, while Efna consistently insists on 47 fear. The dark-haired man with the mustache, the carriage driver, exclaims in frustration at the light brown-haired woman, Efna, for not budging from 47 far, to which she simply repeats the price. The light brown-haired woman, Efna, internally vows to find another carriage for 45 fare if he keeps insisting, while the white-haired man, Johann, quietly suggests that 10 fare isn't a large amount. The dark-haired man with a mustache, the carriage driver, grudgingly concedes, calling Efna a capable young lady and regretting she didn't agree earlier, while Johann and Efna stand by the carriage. The white-haired man, Johann, happily confirms to the light brown-haired woman, Efna, that the driver agreed to 47 fur, then thanks her for protecting Miran's candies. The white-haired man, Johann, politely asks the light brown-haired woman, Efna, where she is headed, with a small thought-bubble chibi accompanying him. A close-up shows the white-haired man's, Johann's, gloved hand extended in an inviting gesture against a sparkling background. The white-haired man, Johann, smiles gently, extending his hand and offering to ride together. A close-up of the white-haired man, Johann, shows him smiling serenely with his eyes closed. A carriage is depicted moving briskly along a rural dirt path surrounded by lush greenery, indicating their journey. The light brown-haired woman, Efna, sits inside the carriage, privately reflecting on her dislike for carriages, finding them uncomfortable. The light brown-haired woman, Efna, attributes her dislike of carriages to a memory from her previous life of being hit by one, shown as a shadowy flashback. The light brown-haired woman, Efna, considers that the discomfort is still bearable, as the white-haired man, Johann, addresses her as teacher. The white-haired man, Johann, asks the light brown-haired woman, Efna, if she is all right, and she, sitting with her hands clasped, reassures him that she is fine. The white-haired man, Johann, looks at Efna with a silent, concerned expression. The white-haired man, Johann, addresses Efna as teacher and extends a small cloth towards her. The white-haired man, Johann, smiles, advising Efna to inhale deeply for 3 seconds and then slowly exhale for 7 seconds. The light brown-haired woman, Efna, reacts with a surprised, huh? As the white-haired man, Johann, holding a golden pocket watch, offers to count the seconds for her if she's experiencing motion sickness. The light brown-haired woman, Efna, closes her eyes, taking a deep breath and trying to calm herself. The scene shifts outside the carriage as a voice guides her through the breathing exercise, counting 1, 2, 3. Now, breathe out. Efna sighs, a small smile forming as she feels a little better from the breathing exercise. Efna thanks the smiling white-haired man, Johann, for his help, and he reveals it's a technique he used for Miran's motion sickness. The white-haired man, Johann, smiles gently, radiating warmth and kindness. The light brown-haired woman, Efna, reflects on Johann's considerate nature, wondering if he, as the knight captain, knows the saint as well. Efna brings up the news of a new saintess being chosen, and Johann confirms it happened 4 months ago. Efna, with light brown hair, beams with a bright, happy smile, her hands clasped. Efna internally plots to butter up Johann, smiling coyly to avoid appearing like someone plotting against the saintess. The white-haired man, Johann, describes the new saintess as kind and frequently smiling. Johann, the white-haired man, maintains a charming smile. Efna praises the saintess, but the carriage jolts violently, cutting her off. A sudden clang sound and the violent jolt leave Efna's light brown-haired face pale with terror. Johann calls out to the light brown-haired woman, Efna, who is hunched over and gasping, clearly suffering from severe motion sickness. The light brown-haired woman, Efna, cries with wide green eyes, completely overwhelmed by her motion sickness. Efna moans in distress, her face flushed as Johann calls out to her, clearly concerned. Efna, with light brown hair, cries with hiccups, her face distorted in extreme discomfort. The white-haired man, Johann, looks at Efna with a deeply concerned expression. A close-up reveals Johann's blue eyes filled with worry. The light brown-haired woman, Efna, tearfully apologizes, explaining her severe motion sickness in carriages. The carriage continues its bumpy journey, reflecting Efna's internal turmoil with a shuddering sensation. Johann, the white-haired man, kneels beside the light brown-haired woman, Efna, calling her name as she cries out in distress. Efna, with light brown hair, takes deep breaths as instructed, trying to calm herself. Johann, the white-haired man, smiles reassuringly, guiding Efna to inhale and exhale just like before. Johann, the white-haired man, calmly instructs Efna to inhale. Johann's gloved hand gently steadies Efna's trembling hand. Efna, with light brown hair, continues her shaky, deep breathing, exhaling slowly. The white-haired man, Johann, exhales softly, watching Efna with a look of concern. The dark-haired carriage driver announces their arrival at the Imperial Palace, telling them to get off. Efna, with light brown hair, looks out the window at the Imperial Palace, surprised to have arrived. Efna, with light brown hair, speaks softly, acknowledging their arrival at the destination. Efna stumbles out, but the white-haired man, Johann, gently catches her hand, with an appreciative sound from Efna. The light brown-haired woman, Efna, profusely apologizes for her earlier state, but the white-haired man, Johann, kindly reassures her. Johann asks Efna about her business at the Imperial Palace, and Efna insists she's fine, reminding him to file a claim if his hand got hurt. A bright, shimmering sound effect marks a transition in the narrative. Efna, with light brown hair, arrives at the Imperial Palace, where a dark-haired man announces her presence. Viscount Chupin, a dark-haired man with glasses, introduces himself as Efna's guide for the Imperial Palace inspection. Efna thanks Viscount Chupin for working on a holiday, a bittersweet sentiment, as he reciprocates the polite acknowledgement. Efna asks Viscount Chupin to see the children's rest area first, and he guides her forward. The light brown-haired woman, Efna, observes the beautiful palace garden, noting only a few stones need clearing. Viscount Chupin highlights the palace greenhouse, filled with rare plants, as an excellent educational resource, which Efna finds wonderful. Efna asks to explore more slowly, and Viscount Chupin grants her an entry permit, stating his guiding task is complete. Efna congratulates Viscount Chupin on finishing his duty, but he reveals he still has other work. The light brown-haired woman, Efna, realizes her entry permit only allows access to the detached palace, a place often used for social gatherings. The light brown-haired woman, Efna, surveys a large fountain, mentally noting its potential danger to children. Efna, with light brown hair, looks surprised, questioning something unseen. Soft footsteps sound as a man and woman walk through the palace grounds. Efna, with light brown hair, looks utterly shocked, recognizing someone off-panel. The brown-haired man, Holdness Vilchin, Efna's former fiancé, appears with a serious expression, recognized by Efna. Efna's full name is spoken, Efna Windister, followed by Efna, and then Johann says Belchester, hinting at a deeper connection. The green-haired man on the ground begs for his life, as an unseen figure asks for the Saintess, who has reportedly gone out. The white-haired interrogator with blue eyes, seated on a throne, notes the Saintess is likely off to write another romance and asks what to do with the captive. The green-haired man desperately cries that he knows nothing and begs for mercy as the white-haired interrogator orders him to be dragged away and disposed of. The white-haired interrogator with blue eyes smirks, remarking that seeing trash daily feels strange, as his gloved hand is open. The white-haired interrogator with blue eyes smiles serenely, reflecting on this peculiar feeling. A bright flash of light breaks the scene, focusing on a vibrant green bush under a clear sky. The brown-haired woman, Efna, internally tells herself not to panic, recognizing the large shoe of the brown-haired man, Holdness Vilchin. The brown-haired man, Holdness Vilchin, looks surprised, questioning Efna's expression and asking if it is really her. Efna looks slightly uneasy, as Holdness internally confirms rumors about the Marquis's household being in trouble. Efna smiles brightly, confirming her identity to Holdness and telling him to wipe the stupid look off his face. Holdness steps closer to Efna, passionately asking how long she has been searching for him these past 5 years. Efna stops Holdness from approaching further as he angrily asks how she can be so nonchalant after storming out of the house. Efna thinks to herself to count to 3 and run, noticing the brown-haired man's eyes, while he suggests they go home and beg the count. The brown-haired man, Holdness Vilchin, looks distressed as the word 1 appears, indicating a countdown. Efna's hand pulls at her dress as the word 2 appears, and Holdness shouts, asking where she is going. The pink-haired woman, Lillian, looks surprised and asks, "Sister Efna?" The pink-haired woman, Lillian, stands elegantly in a flowing white gown with golden chains. The pink-haired woman, Lillian, smiles sweetly with shining pink eyes. A whooshing sound, as Lillian, the pink-haired woman, greets Efna. Efna then internally reacts with annoyance, realizing Holdness is here and Lillian just ignored her. The brown-haired man, Haldness Vilchin addresses the pink-haired woman Lillian, stating he went through the trouble of leaving the temple to see her, and questions why she walks away without a word. Efna, the light brown-haired woman, looks thoughtfully at the pink-haired woman, noticing her dress and crest. Efna internally questions why the pink-haired woman is wearing clothes from the temple. Efna, the light brown-haired woman, realizes the pink-haired woman is undergoing the Saintess's purification period, an adjustment for the new Saintess. The pink-haired woman, Lillian, smiles widely and radiantly, emanating a cheerful aura. Efna, with her back to the viewer, acknowledges Lillian, the pink-haired woman, and offers congratulations. Efna, the light brown-haired woman, looks shocked, realizing that if Lillian is the Saintess, the original story depicts Efna trying to kill her half-sister. Efna looks distressed, her mind a mess, needing to sort out this new revelation. A grabbing sound. The brown-haired man, Haldness Vilchin, grabs Efna's arm. Haldness, holding Efna's arm, asks how much trouble he was in after her disappearance. Efna tells him to let go, but he accuses her of being irresponsible and reckless with family business. Efna shouts that Haldness is harassing her and threatens a trial in the noble court, but he counters that he is her fiancé and asks if she thinks that counts. A forceful grabbing sound. The brown-haired man, Haldness Vilchin, grips Efna's arm tightly. A new red-haired man with yellow eyes appears, and a voice from off-panel addresses him as, "Your Majesty." The red-haired emperor, with yellow eyes, remarks that the Marquis of Vilchin, Haldness, seems refreshed after napping through the noble council, just to flaunt his strength like this. A loud grabbing sound. The red-haired emperor painfully twists Haldness's hand, who screams in response, as the emperor questions why the Marquis is free when the Saintess should be by his side, wondering if the temple is in disarray. Haldness, with a flushed face and the pink-haired woman, Lillian, behind him, apologizes to the red-haired emperor for their rudeness, explaining it was due to reuniting with their precious sister. The red-haired emperor with yellow eyes smirks, repeating, "Precious?" and then says, "I see." Efna, the light brown-haired woman, smiles uneasily. Efna internally ponders about being treasured by a guardian and laments the worst scenario for a kindergarten teacher, recalling how she begged to see the Saintess. The red-haired emperor stands over Haldness, who is on the ground. Haldness, lying on the ground, insists to the red-haired emperor that he had business with Efna first, and declares he will take Efna with him. The emperor then pointedly asks, "Is that so, Marquis Vilchin?" Haldness, still on the ground, tries to say Efna is with him first, as the red-haired emperor stands over him, with Efna and Lily in the background. A powerful surge of red, shadowy aura emanates from the red-haired emperor. The red-haired emperor glares menacingly at Haldness, demanding to know what he said, as a terrified Haldness stammeringly tries to refer to Efna as a powerful thumping sound. The red-haired emperor maintains a fierce gaze as Haldness struggles to complete his possessive claim. The red-haired emperor dismissively says, never mind, as Haldness remains on the ground, defeated, and Efna watches. The red-haired emperor smiles charmingly, though with an underlying edge. The red-haired emperor assures Efna he is glad nothing is wrong, then suggests they leave for an important prior engagement, prompting Efna to question, an engagement? The red-haired emperor, with a confident smile, asks Efna, "Don't we?" referring to the thing we promised to do together. Efna looks confused, silently pondering the meaning of "we" and "promise to do together." Efna realizes, right, the home visit, as the red-haired emperor feigns hurt, asking if she already forgot. Efna looks hesitant, stating she really should be going back now, to which the red-haired emperor asks if that is so. The red-haired emperor questions Efna's departure despite the bright sun, internally wondering if she truly expects him to waste more of his golden weekend daylight. The red-haired emperor with piercing yellow eyes looks at Efna, asking if she truly has to leave. Efna, with light brown hair, smiles brightly and confirms she is truly delighted to keep their appointment. The red-haired emperor remarks that her laugh confirms her delight, while Efna, with light brown hair, laughs and enthusiastically agrees, as the brown-haired man Haldness watches in the background. The brown-haired man Haldness angrily warns that if Efna insists on acting this way, he will have no choice but to tell Count Winchester. Efna, with light brown hair, boldly tells Haldness to go ahead and tell her father, leaving him speechless with a ha-ha sound. Efna, with light brown hair and bright green eyes, looks surprised as she questions whether Haldness really thinks she would help bail out his ruined business. The red-haired emperor calls out Efna's name, while Efna, with light brown hair, thanks His Majesty and states they should leave right now, as Haldness looks on in shock. A whooshing sound is heard as the brown-haired man, Haldness, grabs the pink-haired woman, Lillian, asking where the Emperor is taking Efna, and the Emperor casually acknowledges Lillian. Efna, with light brown hair, smiles over her shoulder, suggesting that her share of blessings be given to Haldness instead. The pink-haired woman, Lillian, smiles sweetly and agrees with Efna, calling her sister, while the brown-haired man, Haldness, looks distraught in the background. The red-haired Emperor, standing with Efna and the pink-haired woman, Lillian, comments on the unbearable chill and suggests heading to the greenhouse, while Efna notes he seems more delicate than he looks. The red-haired Emperor intensely calls out Efna's name, as a close-up on the pink-haired woman's chin and neck is shown against a dark, ominous background. The pink-haired woman, Lillian, with glowing eyes and an elegant gown, questions if Efna believes she can treat her this way and get away with it, surrounded by dark, thorny vines. A crackling sound marks a glowing ring on clasped hands, signifying a significant moment. The scene transitions to a bright and sunlit interior, filled with lush greenery and plants, suggesting a peaceful new setting. The red-haired Emperor and Efna are seated at a table under a large parasol in a beautiful, plant-filled room, where the Emperor asks if she finds the place nice, and Efna replies with a wah sound, agreeing it is beautiful. Efna, with light brown hair, looks at the red-haired Emperor and thanks him for helping her earlier, as a mushy sound is heard. The red-haired Emperor, with yellow eyes, smiles charmingly, acknowledging Efna's thanks. The red-haired Emperor, seated across from Efna with tea and desserts, admits his help was inconvenient and required overtime, but expresses gratitude that she agreed so willingly. An angry thought bubble appears, expressing internal frustration that the Emperor should not have asked if he intended to complain about it. Efna, with light brown hair, laughs happily, showing no outward sign of annoyance. The red-haired Emperor states he cannot tell if Efna is fearless or just has too much of it, as he smirks and a thump sound is heard. The red-haired Emperor stands, looking at Efna, and tells her to take good care of her plump, swollen liver. Efna, with light brown hair, looks away, as she asks if there was another reason why the Emperor gave up the Imperial Palace inspection. The red-haired Emperor casually confirms there was, indeed, another reason for giving up the Imperial Palace, with a shimmer sound. The red-haired Emperor smiles, touching his chin, and states there was a very important reason. A red and pink splash background highlights the text, revealing that around this time 2 years ago, Maxion almost got assassinated. A small red-haired boy, Maxion, stands innocently, a long dark shadow stretching out from him, indicating danger. A dark and ominous image shows a carriage, as the red-haired Emperor's voice narrates that Maxion's carriage was passing through Aquilin Lake Park, which Efna, with light brown hair, realizes was the original field trip location, accompanied by a shiver sound. The red-haired Emperor, with eyes closed, smiles gently as he recalls the past event. Efna, with light brown hair and wide, green eyes, looks shocked as she recalls that 2 years ago, Maxion was only 3 years old. The red-haired Emperor, seated, suggests Efna can call him selfish for changing the location without notice, then jokingly adds that she should at least give him a chance to hit him. The red-haired Emperor, with closed eyes, smiles and points a finger, inviting Efna to hit him with 2 tap sounds. Efna, with light brown hair, looks thoughtful, pondering the Emperor's unusual offer. Efna, with light brown hair, smiles brightly and waves her hand dismissively. The red-haired Emperor smiles, still pointing his finger, seemingly amused by Efna's reaction. A PFFT sound as the red-haired Emperor covers his face and laughs, while Efna, with light brown hair, seriously states that she was asking a genuine question. Efna, with light brown hair, declares that since she is a pacifist, she will let it go this once, and instead asks to hear more about Maxion. The red-haired Emperor smiles, rubbing his eye with a rub sound, as Efna asks to learn more about Maxion. The red-haired Emperor reveals that many people do not look kindly on Maxion, because he is the Emperor's younger brother, not son, who holds the prince's position. Efna, with light brown hair, concludes that to nobles coveting the Empress's seat, a symbol of power, Maxion must seem like an unwelcome presence. The red-haired Emperor, with a small tisk sound, praises Efna as a first-class kindergarten teacher and confirms her assessment as exactly right. Efna, with light brown hair, expresses sympathy, stating it must be hard for both the Emperor and Maxion, to which the Emperor asks if she feels a little sympathy for him. Efna, with light brown hair, smiles and states she only sympathizes with things that are weak and cute by nature, as the red-haired Emperor appears as a tiny, laughing chibi figure. The red-haired Emperor, seated, suggests that for an emperor tormented by eavesdropping rats, lending out a corner of the counseling room would be fine. Efna questions what the emperor plans to do in the counseling room, wondering if he will worry about the future of the empire and its people, or perhaps consider the safety of the rats. Efna, with light brown hair, smiles and states it is acceptable as long as the emperor gets permission from the director. The red-haired emperor smiles serenely, with a shimmer sound, pleased by Efna's condition. The grand palace is shown, followed by Efna, with light brown hair, happily guiding a group of chibi children, including a dark-haired boy, a pink-haired girl, and a red-haired boy, reminding them to stay in line. Efna, the light brown-haired woman, announces to the children, including a dark-haired boy, a red-haired boy, and a pink-haired girl, that they will be visiting the greenhouse. Efna, the light brown-haired woman, internally reflects on the long journey and the effort required to manage the children. Efna, the light brown-haired woman, smiles as she instructs the children to form 2 orderly rows before entering the greenhouse. The pink-haired girl, Mirren, smiles delightedly, while a thought bubble remarks on how so pretty the greenhouse appears. The children, including the red-haired boy Maxion and the pink-haired girl Mirren, walk through the grand greenhouse, admiring the ornate architecture. A thought bubble expresses wonder at such a huge flower among the vibrant plants in the greenhouse. Blue butterflies flutter gracefully over a sparkling fountain, adding to the serene beauty of the greenhouse. Efna, the light brown-haired woman, asks the children if they find the plants beautiful and reminds them to just look with their eyes so they don't hurt the flowers. Efna, the light brown-haired woman, internally wishes the children would follow her instructions as well as they answer. The pink-haired girl, Myron, has fallen into mud, crying out that she got mud on herself, as a wah sound rings out and a narration states she was rolling around in a mud field. The dark-haired boy, Bandide, is shown eating chocolate, his mouth covered in it, with a narration stating he ate so much his mouth turned black. Efna, the light brown-haired woman, looks overwhelmed, surrounded by many hands-holding items, symbolizing she would need 1,000 hands to manage everything. Efna, the light brown-haired woman, calmly addresses the children, telling the pink-haired girl, Mirren, to change into spare clothes and the red-haired boy, Maxion, to dry off with a fluffy towel. A blue butterfly flits gracefully past sparkling green leaves, highlighting a tranquil moment. A tired Efna, the light brown-haired woman, sighs and sits down with a thump, announcing that it's finally lunchtime. Efna, the light brown-haired woman, thinks about supervising the children's meal first before she can eat, as the dark-haired boy, Bandide, and others enjoy their food. Efna, the light brown-haired woman, asks the red-haired boy, Maxion, holding a dark box, "What is it?" Efna, the light brown-haired woman, looks on with a deeply concerned expression, asking, "What?" The red-haired boy, Maxion, with a troubled expression, reveals that a girl went to get water from her bag but never returned. A thought bubble expresses concern, stating, "I can't see her anywhere." Other children are visible in the background, sitting and eating, while the foreground is ominously darkened by leaves, implying unseen danger. Efna, the light brown-haired woman, looks extremely worried, her face shadowed, as she softly calls out, "Marin?" Viscount Chupin, the dark-haired man with glasses, walks briskly through the sunny palace grounds, holding papers. Viscount Chupin, the dark-haired man, looks startled as his name is called out. Viscount Chupin, the dark-haired man, approaches Efna, the light brown-haired woman, inquiring if it's the day of the field trip, as she acknowledges him. Efna, the light brown-haired woman, urgently asks Viscount Chupin, the dark-haired man, for help from the Imperial Knights, to which he responds, "What happened?" And ugh sounds. Efna, the light brown-haired woman, looks terrified, her eyes wide with fear, as she exclaims, "A child is missing." Viscount Chupin, the dark-haired man, reacts in shock, his face contorted as he asks, "What?" Efna, the light brown-haired woman, distraught, frantically calls out, "Mirren!" across the palace grounds. Efna, the light brown-haired woman, desperately calls out Mirren again, loudly stating she is her teacher and demanding a response. Efna, The light brown-haired woman looks concerned, thinking to herself that there must be dangerous plants inside the greenhouse. Efna, the light brown-haired woman, glances nervously, asking, "Huh?" Efna, the light brown-haired woman, stands by a body of water in the greenhouse, horrified, and calling out, "Mirin, no, no." Efna, the light brown-haired woman, urgently pulls up her skirt and steps into the water, calling out, "Mirin, are you there?" A splash sound is heard. Efna, the light brown-haired woman, calls out, "Mirin!" with a desperate look. As splash sounds continue around her in the water, Efna, the light brown-haired woman, reaches into the water, but a white-haired man grabs her wrist, telling her to stop, Teacher Efna. Efna, the light brown-haired woman, looks shocked as the white-haired man pulls her back from the water, an ugh sounding out. The white-haired man holds Efna, the light brown-haired woman, as she struggles to get away, insisting he let her go because Myron is. He gently covers her mouth to calm her. The white-haired man, with long white hair and blue eyes, looks on with a concerned and weary expression. Efna, the light brown-haired woman, frantically tells the white-haired man that she thinks Mirin fell into the water and they must hurry and save her. He calmly calls her teacher. The white-haired man holds Efna, the light brown-haired woman, reassuringly, asking her to please look carefully, teacher. Efna, the light brown-haired woman, looks surprised and slightly flushed as she hesitantly says, "That is." The white-haired man is shown holding a blonde-haired woman in his arms, away from the water. Efna, the light brown-haired woman, looks down in disbelief, remarking a leaf, and internally thinks she must be losing my senses. Efna, the light brown-haired woman, sinks to the ground with a thump, regretting that she reacted without even checking properly. Efna, the light brown-haired woman, sincerely apologizes for not being more attentive and promises to take full responsibility for Myron's safe return, while the white-haired man listens intently. The white-haired man smiles kindly at Efna, the light brown-haired woman, who, looking slightly abashed, expresses that her next words might be impolite, but the white-haired man with blue eyes smiles serenely. A small, light brown-haired girl in a red dress sits as a white-haired man kneels before her, and she formally entrusts herself to him, saying, "Ah, then, I will be in your care, dear guardian." The light brown-haired woman, Efna, closes her eyes in deep thought, reflecting that while someone must be shaken, she also needs to snap out of it because time is short. The light brown-haired woman, Efna, is startled by a distinct smell, then cries out in alarm as a large, spiky green plant attacks and wraps its dark purple tendrils around her. The white-haired man, wielding a glowing green sword, stands protectively in front of the light brown-haired woman, Efna, whose long hair cascades down her back. The white-haired man holds the light brown-haired woman, Efna, securely, expressing his dislike for the imperial palace because of its dangers, as a large green plant looms nearby. A close-up reveals the large green spiky plants, and a thought bubble laments that the place is crawling with various bugs. The pink-haired girl, Mirin, perched cheerfully on a spiky plant, calls out to Teacher Efna, saying, "Teacher, this place is super fun," as Efna looks on in shock and shouts, "Mirin." The white-haired man calmly offers to handle the situation, but the light brown-haired woman, Efna, firmly tells him, "No, Sir Guardian," while he stands ready before the plants. The light brown-haired woman, Efna, urgently explains to Sir Guardian that the plant is called Kelfida, a parasitic species that feeds on divine power, asking, "Feeds," in surprise. A spiky green plant is shown as Efna's explanation continues, detailing that the stronger one's divine power, the worse the compatibility, which explains how it's so easily lured Mirin. The light brown-haired woman, Efna, looks worried, thinking that she never imagined they would try to capture Mirin already. The light brown-haired woman, Efna, explains to Sir Desat that the plants prey on people's weaknesses to bewitch them, and warns him that someone with strong divine power, like him, is even more vulnerable. The light brown-haired woman, Efna, smiles, telling Sir Desat his chances of being deceived are higher than Mirin's, while Mirin gleefully plays with a plant tendril, calling it mommy, and laughing that tickles as Sir Desat looks down thoughtfully. Sir Desat, the white-haired man, is shown in a serious profile, his expression resolute. A detailed view of Sir Desat's ornate golden shoulder piece, featuring a gleaming green gem, suggests a moment of subtle movement or focus on his armor. Sir Desat, the white-haired man, swiftly swings his glowing green sword, attacking the large green plants. Sir Desat's intense blue eyes are visible through a flurry of motion, indicating his focused and powerful attack. Sir Desat, the white-haired man, is struck by a dark, thorny plant tendril, with blood splattering from the impact. Surdisat, the white-haired man, stumbles but remains standing, facing the threatening green plants, one of which glows with ominous red energy. Sir Dysot, the white-haired man, offers a faint, strained smile, looking away slightly. Amidst a vibrant floral background, Sir Dysot internally wonders if Efna would run away if he were to be taken down disgracefully. The light brown-haired woman, Efna, looks surprised and slightly flushed, her eyes wide with a mix of concern and bewilderment. Against a background of beautiful white and yellow flowers, Sir Dysot's thought bubble directly asks, "Will you run away?" Sir Dysot, the white-haired man, smiles gently, a soft light emanating around him. The light brown-haired woman, Efna, looking distressed and alarmed, calls out, "Don't go!" Sir Dysot, the white-haired man, stands covered in blood, clearly injured, as he clutches his mouth in pain, reflecting the intensity of the struggle. The pink-haired girl, Myrin, obliviously laughs, "Kia ha ha!" and asks her mom to swing her higher on a dark plant tendril, while Sir Dysot stands in the foreground, his back to her, facing the glowing green plant with his sword. Sir Dysot, the white-haired man, is shown in a fierce battle sequence, his face determined, his arm striking, and finally, him being hit by dark tendrils amidst splattering blood. A large green plant pulses with purple energy, surrounded by swirling patterns, indicating it is absorbing something. The pink-haired girl, Myrin, continues to joyfully swing on a plant tendril with outstretched arms, unaware of the peril. The light brown-haired woman, Efna, looks on with a horrified expression, reaching out her hand in desperation. A foot, presumably Efna's, steps forward urgently, indicating she is rushing into action. The light brown-haired woman, Efna, holds the pink-haired girl, Myrin, securely in her arms, both looking momentarily overwhelmed. The light brown-haired woman, Efna, checks on Myrin, asking, "Myrin, are you all right?" To which Myrin, smiling happily, responds, "Teacher EFNA." The light brown-haired woman, Efna, holds the pink-haired girl, Myrin, close in her arms as she stands in the greenhouse. The pink-haired girl, Myrin, sleeps peacefully in Efna's embrace. As Efna explains, Myrin's sleep is due to the divine power interference ending, while Sir Dysot asks, "Teacher, are you all right?" Sir Dysot, the white-haired man, looks shocked and starts to speak, calling out T. Sir Dysot, the white-haired man, appears concerned, possibly noticing Efna's distress or injury. The light brown-haired woman, Efna, cries tears of relief while embracing the sleeping pink-haired girl, Myrin. Sir Dysot, the white-haired man, watches as Efna wipes her eyes while holding Myrin, and Efna apologizes, explaining that her tension had finally released. The light brown-haired woman, Efna, smiles through her tears, embracing the sleeping pink-haired girl, Myrin. Sir Dysot, the white-haired man, gazes at Efna with a slightly flushed and contemplative expression. Sir Dysot, the white-haired man, stands quietly in the grand greenhouse, clenching his fist in a moment of reflection. Sir Dysot, the white-haired man, stands in the opulent greenhouse, then addresses Efna, saying, "Now then, teacher." Sir Dysot, the white-haired man, kneels down and gently touches the hands of the light brown-haired woman, Efna, who cradles the pink-haired girl, Myrin. Sir Dysot, the white-haired man, smiles warmly, his face radiating kindness. Sir Dysot, the white-haired man, looks towards Efna, who holds the sleeping Myrin, and directs her to look while gesturing to his chest. Sir Dysot, the white-haired man, reveals his abs, showing a faint scar, and calmly states that he treated himself immediately and managed to survive. Sir Dysot, the white-haired man, tells Efna that if his self-treatment is poor, she may strike him, then offers to hold Myrin so Efna can show him her wound. The light brown-haired woman, Efna, looks down and assents with, "All right, here," revealing a prominent bruise on her arm. The white-haired man gently touches Efna's arm, which glows with a soft light. The white-haired man observes the light on his hand, wondering if it indicates the talent of a windister. Efna, looking surprised and a little flushed, notes that her wound has healed well. The high priest, Havs Dysot, an older white-haired man, is introduced. Myrin stirs awake, asking for her daddy with a sleepy groan. Sir Dysot reassures his kneeling father, Havs Dysot, that Myrin is perfectly fine. Havs Dysot scolds Myrin for not staying with her teacher, but Myrin cheerfully insists her mommy called her. Havs Dysot looks bewildered when Myrin explains her mommy called her for cookies and singing. Myrin laughs joyfully with outstretched hands. Havs Dysot, overwhelmed with emotion, tearfully embraces Myrin. Sir Dysot, holding Efna, recalls the helplessness he felt when his mother passed away, unable to do anything. Sir Desat's sorrowful eye reflects his memory of watching his mother leave. Efna looks concerned, understanding Sir Desat's past sorrow. Sir Desat tightly embraces Efna, shouting her name in distress. Efna now understands why Sir Desat reacted with such alarm earlier. Havs Desat scolds the palace staff for the Kelfida incident, while Efna observes his temper, thinking he's like father, like son. Havs Desat, holding Meyrin, resolutely declares his intention to seek an audience with the king about the Kelfida. Efna stands, emanating light as she attributes Meyrin's safety to her teacher. Efna expresses surprise and pleasure as her clothes and hair instantly dry. High Priest Havs Desat formally introduces himself as Meyrin's guardian-to-be, while Efna introduces herself as Meyrin's homeroom teacher. Efna thanks Havs Desat and apologizes, but he reassures her not to blame herself for the Kelfida's lure. Meyrin sleeps soundly, undisturbed. Efna looks alarmed as she begins to explain about the Kelfida Sir Desat encountered. Sir Desat offers a subtle, knowing smile. Sir Desat smiles serenely, gesturing for silence while standing beside Efna. Efna smiles faintly, contemplating that she might be able to find help. Sir Desat questions Efna's hidden smile, while a thought describes it as the sly smile of a romance heroine. Sir Desat informs Efna he will take Meyrin back, and Efna wishes them a safe journey. Efna prepares to leave, advising Sir Desat to visit the hospital if he feels pain, and thanks him for the day. Efna lets out a relieved sigh as she stands alone, a large boot briefly prominent in the foreground. Efna, lost in thought, remembers her responsibility to return to the children soon. Efna Windister. Efna looks surprised, wondering who is calling her by her old name Windister in this place. Efna smiles softly, realizing something, as a man's mouth is seen speaking. A voice exclaims in sudden recognition, "You are!" The grand ornate exterior of the building stands bathed in light. Efna looks surprised and somewhat troubled. The brown-haired man, identified as Marquis Vilchin's report, confronts Efna angrily, questioning her presence. The brown-haired man greets Efna, calling her brother, but Efna immediately clarifies something. Efna, looking annoyed, corrects him by stating she was always there, and he was the one who intruded, finding it random. The brown-haired man approaches Efna, commenting on her newfound boldness, while Efna challenges him, asking if he intends to hit her again. Efna cries out in shock and pain, clutching her chest as she asks if he has lost his mind. Efna looks up in surprise as the brown-haired man holds a glowing sword towards her. Noting the greenhouse setting, Sir Desat intervenes, deflecting the brown-haired man's sword, while remarking on the number of pests, prompting the brown-haired man to call out, "Lord Johann." The brown-haired man, Lord Johann, questions Sir Desat's presence, while Sir Desat smiles, internally wondering about the situation. Sir Desat observes a pest clinging to Lord Johann's arm, referring to the sword he is holding. Sir Desat offers a menacing smile, proposing to crush the pest for Lord Johann, who looks terrified. Lord Johann cries out, falling to his knees as Sir Desat stands calmly, having presumably crushed the pest on his arm, and Efna looks surprised. Sir Desat smiles gently, radiating a serene demeanor. Efna looks thoughtfully at Sir Desat's outstretched hand. The light brown-haired woman, Efna, smiles gently amidst flowers, stating she won't refuse. A bright, festive atmosphere fills a bustling town street with banners strung overhead. The light brown-haired woman, Efna, walks through the market, thoughtfully wondering about materials. The light brown-haired woman, Efna, looks surprised as someone loudly tells them to get lost, making her wonder if a fight is happening. The brown-haired man, Lord Johann, looks up in surprise, recognizing the dark-haired man as Duke Caden Hildevan. The light brown-haired woman, Efna, peeks from behind the dark-haired man, Duke Caden Hildevan, wondering why he is there, and unable to hear their conversation. The brown-haired man, Lord Johann, loudly denies engaging in slave trading, while the light brown-haired woman, Efna, reacts with shock to his declaration. Slave trading appears, resonating with a disturbing implication. The dark-haired man, Duke Caden Hildevan, calmly states he is only seeking a gift for his wife, implying the other person is too deaf to understand. The brown-haired man, Lord Johann, demands to see the Duke's wife, then questions if the blushing light brown-haired woman, Efna, hiding behind the dark-haired man, Duke Caden Hildevan, is meant to be her. The light brown-haired woman, Efna, regrets eavesdropping and awkwardly attempts a greeting. The dark-haired man, Duke Caden Hildevan, the light brown-haired woman, Efna, and the brown-haired man, Lord Johann, stand facing each other in a moment of tension. The dark-haired man, Duke Caden Hildevan, starts to speak, while the light brown-haired woman, Efna, looks up at him with surprise. The dark-haired man, Duke Caden Hildevan, smiles gently as he puts his arm around the surprised and blushing, light brown-haired woman, Efna. The brown-haired man, Lord Johan, rudely comments on the Duke's attire versus his wife's shabby clothes, causing the light brown-haired woman, Efna, to inwardly curse him, unable to argue back. The dark-haired man, Duke Caden Hildevan, looks pensive, recognizing his own inability to respond to the insult. The light brown-haired woman, Efna, sighs in silent frustration, clenching her hand. An unseen speaker scolds someone for ogling and speaking rudely about another man's wife. The dark-haired man, Duke Caden Hildevan, dramatically declares he is hurt and calls the light brown-haired woman, Efna, honey, astonishing her. The dark-haired man, Duke Caden Hildevan, asks the light brown-haired woman, Efna, if she remembers her father's gift dress, bewildering the brown-haired man, Lord Johan. The light brown-haired woman, Efna, smiles broadly, a mix of surprise and fluster on her face. The light brown-haired woman, Efna, clasps her hands over her chest, reflecting her emotional state. The dark-haired man, Duke Caden Hildevan, melodramatically claims to have bought the gift while sick, causing the brown-haired man, Lord Johan, to protest that he was misunderstood. The dark-haired man, Duke Caden Hildevan, menacingly asks the light brown-haired woman, Efna, if he should shoot the man, terrifying her. A man loudly announces a raid, frantically urging everyone to move and escape the danger. The brown-haired man, Lord Johan, falls to the ground with a thud, while the dark-haired man, Duke Caden Hildevan, and the light brown-haired woman, Efna, stand still. The dark-haired man, Duke Caden Hildevan, sighs with a subtle smirk, observing that they will now have to relocate again. The dark-haired man, Duke Caden Hildevan, asks the light brown-haired woman, Efna, if she is all right, to which she replies she was merely curious. The light brown-haired woman, Efna, asks if they were truly selling slaves, but the dark-haired man, Duke Caden Hildevan, replies he cannot disclose such information. The light brown-haired woman, Efna, offers to keep secrets, but the dark-haired man, Duke Caden Hildevan, points out her uncharacteristic interest in confidential matters. The dark-haired man, Duke Caden Hildevan, reveals that secret slave trading has been occurring recently. The light brown-haired woman, Efna, reacts with horrified shock, calling those involved in slave trading lunatics. The dark-haired man, Duke Caden Hildevan, further reveals that Mayu stones are being used as currency for slave trades, surprising the light brown-haired woman, Efna. The light brown-haired woman, Efna, with clasped hands, recognizes Mayu stones as the mineral from the Duke's lands used in Magi engineering. The dark-haired man, Duke Caden Hildevan, looks down at the light brown-haired woman, Efna, asking if the revelation now feels more like a dangerous secret. The dark-haired man, Duke Caden Hildevan, with a stern gaze, explains his need to act before rumors link him to funding slave traders. The dark-haired man, Duke Caden Hildevan, vows to crush the slave traders himself, a sentiment the light brown-haired woman, Efna, agrees with due to the use of Hildevan minerals. The light brown-haired woman, Efna, repeats the Duke's words of exterminate them all, then questions the true ominous meaning of exterminate. The dark-haired man, Duke Caden Hildevan, gives a subtle, menacing smile, hinting at his ruthless intentions. The light brown-haired woman, Efna, clearing her throat, states that the grim matters are too profound for her to comprehend. The light brown-haired woman, Efna, internally scolds herself, realizing her nosy curiosity could be her downfall. The dark-haired man, Duke Caden Hildevan, observes the light brown-haired woman, Efna, with a knowing, slightly amused expression. An unseen observer internally remarks that someone is an interesting one. The light brown-haired woman, Efna, looks surprised and asks the dark-haired man, Duke Caden Hildevan, to repeat what he said. The dark-haired man, Duke Caden Hildevan, adjusts his collar with a confident smile and addresses the light brown-haired woman, Efna, as teacher. The scene transitions, marking that day with a view of a grand sunlit building. A woman shouts at another mother not to push her carriage, while a purple-haired woman instructs a red-eyed boy named Philip that he must be chosen. The narration describes an unusually noisy journey to school, where the light brown-haired woman, Efna, stands with papers. The light brown-haired woman, Efna, looks on with wide, concerned eyes, pondering the situation. The purple-haired woman wonders if the emperor is idle, as the red-haired man firmly tells the small red-haired boy, Maxion, he is his. An unseen speaker welcomes parents and students, instructing them to enter the grand building one by one. A tall, white-haired man smiles broadly next to a small, pink-haired girl who is laughing happily. The dark-haired man, Duke Caden Hildevon, is shown in a close-up, looking thoughtful. The light brown-haired woman, Efna, stands formally, holding papers and offering a gentle smile. The light brown-haired woman, Efna, announces from a stage that casting for the first semester school play will now begin, to the enthusiastic applause of the crowd. The light brown-haired woman, Efna, shows a slight nervous smile while holding papers, thinking about the school play casting. A red-haired boy, a dark-haired boy, and a pink-haired girl clap happily, all looking excited and joyful. The dark-haired man, Duke Caden Hildevon, and the red-haired man stand side by side as narration explains that for the adults, the play was a battle for noble pride. The light brown-haired woman, Efna, on stage, announces the year's theme after describing how children give presentations and vote for the lead role. The light brown-haired woman, Efna, smiles brightly and confidently. A brown-haired woman in a hat expresses shock, exclaiming that the announced topic was predicted in the mom salon. The light brown-haired woman, Efna, smiles gently to herself, thinking that people are the same everywhere. A group of parents, including the brown-haired woman, murmur amongst themselves as narration explains the initial opposition to school plays from nobles who question children singing and dancing. A spotlight shines on a dark-haired boy in a green costume, as narration reveals that the lead role in the play always secured the student council president position. The grand arched hall is depicted, with narration stating that the school play casting had become a fierce battleground linked to entrance exams. The light brown-haired woman, Efna, smiles kindly while instructing the parents to head home and the children to go to their classrooms. A man urgently asks about his child's favorite doll, while another woman fiercely declares that Melissa must be the lead role, no matter what. The light brown-haired woman, Efna, looks down, appearing concerned by the escalating tension among the parents. The small, dark-haired boy tells the dark-haired man that he doesn't want the scary lead role, prompting the man to offer 20 chocolate snacks as an incentive. The red-haired man suggests the pink-haired girl would look like a princess as the lead, but the white-haired man replies that his sister isn't royalty, perhaps a crown princess-in-law. The white-haired man dismisses the princess-in-law idea as a joke, asserting the pink-haired girl's talent requires education as a crown princess, then sternly tells someone to leave. The red-haired man urges everyone to take the children to class, while a small brown-haired girl clings to him, and the dark-haired man offers 20 chocolates, vantere, to the small dark-haired boy. The light brown-haired woman, Efna, smiles brightly and enthusiastically asks if everyone is ready to go to class. The small dark-haired boy grins widely and makes a peace sign, looking very happy. The light brown-haired woman, Efna, thoughtfully considers what kind of costume would be best for the play and decides to seek a better supplier than their usual one. The light brown-haired woman, Efna, approaches a shop entrance, stating she is there to look at children's clothes. Efna gasps in shock and embarrassment as she hears loud commotions coming from inside what turns out to be a kid's clothing store. A dark-haired woman and a purple-dressed woman in a hat argue fiercely, with the purple-dressed woman shouting, "Who dares say my child can't be the lead role?" The light brown-haired woman, Efna, looks completely shocked and dismayed, realizing that those are the parents from our class. The dark-haired woman in a hat and the purple-dressed woman argue intensely, with one calling the other's parents uncultured, while Efna stands frozen in disbelief. The dark-haired woman physically grabs the brown-haired woman in a hat, while Efna is caught in the middle of their escalating fight. The light brown-haired woman, Efna, is sent reeling from the conflict, emphasizing her role as a romance fantasy transmigrator. A woman's leg is visible as a loud "Kya!" rings out, indicating someone has fallen or cried out during the chaotic fight. Both the brown-haired woman with a hat and the dark-haired woman appear flustered and embarrassed, muttering, The light brown-haired woman, Efna, lies on the wooden floor, looking dazed as someone exclaims, "Teacher Efna?" The brown-haired woman in a hat and the dark-haired woman look down at the fallen light brown-haired woman, Efna, asking if she is all right. The light brown-haired woman, Efna, smiles gently despite having a nosebleed. The brown-haired woman with a hat points out Efna's nosebleed, but Efna insists she is perfectly fine. A close-up of a blue high heel is shown, as Efna thinks about the school play. The light brown-haired woman, Efna, suggests that the joyous school play may need to be canceled if it continues to be a reckless battlefield of competition. The brown-haired woman with a hat and the dark-haired woman plead with Efna not to cancel the play, Efna sternly asks the two women if they will continue fighting, leading to them hastily embracing and claiming they've reconciled. Efna happily agrees not to cancel the play, since the children look forward to it, as the women promise to behave. Efna tells the two women to continue getting along and departs, internally noting how quickly kids, or in this case adults, respond to such instructions. A bell rings as Efna closes the door, letting out a sigh of exhaustion, feeling drained. Efna stands on a street, contemplating her desire to go home and rest, but knowing she absolutely must find a new supplier today. Efna glances to the side, reacting with a curious, "Hmm?" Efna looks surprised as she recognizes the building, thinking, "This place is..." Efna observes the dark-haired man, Duke Caden Hildevan, from behind and recalls hearing that this building was involved in slave dealings. A wooden door, slightly ajar, stands in a dark, ominous hallway as an unseen person wonders why the crackdown building is open, and a child's cries of sob, hick, mommy echo from within. The light brown-haired woman, Efna, looks shocked and distressed, hearing a child's voice and disbelieving the situation. Efna's high-heeled shoes are visible as she reacts with further disbelief to the sounds. A decorative purple-hued interlude with a small purple-haired cartoon character in text marks a narrative transition, thanking readers and recruiting staff. Efna pushes open the wooden door, revealing a dimly lit stone-walled room with a bright light from an unseen window. Efna stands in the doorway, confused, thinking she heard a child's voice but seeing only an empty room. Efna looks down, realizing the room contains a staircase leading further into the dark depths below. Efna's shoes are shown as she debates whether to call someone else or act immediately, fearing every second might count. Efna descends the dark stone staircase, resolute in her decision to investigate alone. Efna looks surprised as a small piece of paper flutters down from the stone wall, making a tapping sound. Efna picks up the fallen paper, questioning what it is. Two internal thoughts appear as she wonders about the sudden paper and feels a temptation to read it. Efna holds the paper, looking at it with a worried expression. A sound indicates her thoughtful gaze. Efna's eye widens in shock and alarm as she looks closely at the paper. A close-up reveals the paper bears a temple's insignia. Efna examines the paper, noticing a shabby-looking magic circle, and decides to keep it just in case. Efna carefully continues her descent, stepping cautiously, holding her hand to her mouth in disgust as the stench of blood assaults her. Heavy iron shackles hang from a chain, confirming the building's horrific purpose. Efna looks on in horror, muttering, "This can't be," as she sees bloodstains on the stone floor and a broken chain. Efna looks into the darkness ahead, realizing with a start that someone is there. Efna stands frozen, covering her mouth in fear, unable to move as she stares into the shadowy corridor. A long, white-haired man, seen from behind, walks deeper into the dungeon-like area, with Efna still frozen in the background. The long, white-haired man, with flowing white hair and wearing a black suit, adjusts his collar, complaining about how tedious the situation is. The long, white-haired man smokes a cigar, looking thoughtful with his blue eyes. Efna stares in wide-eyed shock at the long, white-haired man. The long, white-haired man smiles subtly. Efna looks flustered and embarrassed, covering her mouth. The long, white-haired man addresses her with a smile, calling her Lady Efna. He expresses surprise at seeing her there, and Efna, looking flustered, agrees that she didn't expect to see him either. The long, white-haired man steps closer, warning Efna that the place is dangerous, and kindly offers to help her leave, noting that she doesn't look well. Their hands meet with a tap, signaling contact. Efna looks up at the long, white-haired man. A small panel shows blood splatters on the floor, adding to the grim atmosphere. Efna awkwardly explains she was just wandering around the dressing room area, fumbling for an excuse about dust. Efna nervously laughs at her own awkward excuse, internally scolding herself to say something more coherent. The long, white-haired man smiles subtly, his eyes conveying a knowing amusement. A close-up shows the long, white-haired man's elegant black brooch, sparkling amongst blue flowers. The long, white-haired man informs Efna that this place was a slave trading site, to which she replies that she knew and wanted to verify its destruction. He confirms he cleaned it all up himself, prompting Efna to connect this to Milan's passion for cleaning and compliment his teaching. Efna, with a bright smile, triumphantly declares that he was the one who turned the slavers' den into ruins. The long, white-haired man smiles, prompting Efna to internally think he shouldn't smile so prettily when describing such a grim act. The long, white-haired man explains he was choosing a gift for Mylan and was wondering what her most favorite thing might be. He presents an elegant, ornate container in his gloved hand. He opens the container with a soft clicking sound, revealing a small carousel horse inside. Efna confidently states that Malin will absolutely love it, and the long white-haired man softly agrees, hoping so too. A dark-haired man in uniform approaches, reporting to the long white-haired man that they found the escape route of the runaway slavers, and the long white-haired man asks for the location. The dark-haired man whispers that the route might be related to the Saintess, while Efna strains to hear but cannot clearly understand. The long white-haired man dismisses the topic for now, ordering the knight to finish the search, leaving Efna frustrated that she couldn't catch a word. Efna, feeling she has been a bother, suggests they move elsewhere, and the long white-haired man apologizes for talking too much in the knight's workplace. Efna declares she'll take her leave, but the long white-haired man looks down thoughtfully and begins to ask her something. Efna smiles brightly, eagerly awaiting the long white-haired man's unspoken request. The long white-haired man with captivating blue eyes thinks silently, his expression pensive. A heavy foot with bloodstains on the floor suggests a grim reality, as the long white-haired man's blue eyes look down, deep in thought. The long white-haired man kindly tells Efna to get home safely, and she cheerfully replies that she will see him at the school festival. The long white-haired man stands alone at the top of a blood-stained stone staircase, his hands clasped behind his back, looking serious. The long white-haired man stares ahead, his blue eyes pensive and his expression unreadable. Thoughts float in the air, contemplating the Saintess and admitting she keeps the speaker guessing. A beautiful, sunny day illuminates a majestic school building with towering spires nestled under fluffy clouds. Efna appears utterly exhausted with dark circles under her eyes, noting that it's finally the 7th day of overtime. Efna walks into a brightly lit hall, pondering her resolve to do her best again this year. 3 excited children, a dark-haired girl, a pink-haired girl named Myron, and a dark-haired boy, eagerly exclaim that teacher Efna has arrived. Efna stands behind a podium, clapping her hands and enthusiastically asking the unseen audience if they are ready. 3 women, 2 with light brown hair and 1 with blonde hair, appear ecstatic and shout their enthusiastic agreement. Efna beams with a radiant smile, clearly delighted by the cheerful response. The magnificent school building stands tall against a bright, cloudy sky, surrounded by green foliage. A green-haired boy named Philip proudly displays a pink handkerchief, explaining that it is his mother's, used since he was a baby. Several mothers in the audience look on, touched by Philip's heartfelt presentation, as he adds that he always carries it, thinking of his mom. Efna praises Philip for his presentation and then calls for the next student, as Philip bows to the clapping audience. A brown-haired boy with glasses holds up a red apple, stating he grew it himself and plans to plant the tree when the world ends. Efna finds the boy's declaration familiar and applauds, while other children express their awe at his excellent presentation. Efna smiles gently, feeling grateful that the children are so pure and kind-hearted. Efna observes that the children genuinely enjoy each other's presentations without envy, as 2 boys enthusiastically play with a blue toy train. Efna smiles, acknowledging that 5-year-olds can easily lose focus but are currently captivated. A child's legs in shorts and brown shoes walk past, their presentation concluded. Efna wonders what the small dark-haired boy, Vantide, will present, noting that even His Highness seemed to wish for him to be the main character. A bright flash accompanies the dark-haired boy as he prepares his item for presentation. Efna's eyes widen in shock and realization as she sees the boy's offering. The small, dark-haired boy, Vantad, confidently holds up a chocolate bar. Vantade's legs in shorts and brown shoes stand prominently, showcasing his small stature. Vantade proudly presents his chocolate, while Efna internally wonders if this is truly the best he could offer. Several other children excitedly clamor for chocolate, wanting some of Vantade's treat. Efna mentally compares the situation to a class president election, lamenting that the ways of the world never change. Efna directs the children to return to their seats and then calls the red-haired boy Maxion for his presentation. Maxion proudly declares that the citizens of their beloved empire are what he loves the most. Efna informs the pink-haired girl, Mirin, that it is now her turn to present. Efna internally recalls the pretty carousel horse music box and wonders if Mirin will bring that out for her presentation. Mirin, the pink-haired girl, happily proclaims her love for her pretty teacher Efna. Mirin hugs Efna's leg, loudly declaring her immense love for teacher Efna. Efna blushes and smiles, touched by Mirin's affectionate outburst. Other children protest, claiming it's unfair and that they also love teacher Efna the most, some even wanting to change their names to Miss Efna. Efna smiles, feeling both happy and slightly overwhelmed by the children's passionate declarations of affection. The mothers in the audience lean forward anxiously, silently hoping their child will be chosen as the play's protagonist. Efna smiles, announcing that the counting is complete and is about to reveal the play's protagonist. The mothers and children are visibly on edge, anticipating the announcement, with Maxion and Marin particularly tense. Efna triumphantly announces that Vantade is the protagonist of the play. Efna encourages everyone to congratulate Vantade, as the other children react with a mix of surprise and mild disappointment while applause sounds. Philip, the green-haired boy, is clearly upset, believing he gave the best presentation and should have been the main character. Efna gently consoles a crying Philip, explaining that everyone can shine in a play, not just the protagonist, but he still feels sad. Efna reflects that even villains can have a presence rivaling the protagonist, acknowledging her own struggles to keep that in check. Philip offers the main character role to Vantade, who quickly refuses, stating it's scary and suggests Philip take it instead. Efna expresses surprise at Vantade's refusal, noting that no child has ever given up the lead role before. Efna encourages a sad Philip to thank Vantade, and Philip reluctantly offers his thanks. Efna claps her hands, smiling, and asks the children if they should announce the other play roles. Efna smiles gently, her hands clasped, surrounded by blooming flowers. Efna walks, looking utterly exhausted and feeling like she is about to implode. A sparkling body of water with the words, "One log bridge," implies a game is about to begin. Instructions detail a game where two children must cross a narrow imaginary log bridge over deep water. Observe to see how they act. Pink-haired Marin and red-haired Maxion fiercely argue and push each other, both demanding to go first on the imaginary bridge. Mirin defends herself against Maxion, calling her a slowpoke, while Efna tries to intervene with a simple, Efna holds the fighting Mirin and Maxion by their collars, trying to stop them, feeling overwhelmed by her hardcore schedule with unpredictable 5-year-olds. Efna smiles wearily, pondering internally who will cause trouble this time. A blonde-haired girl with purple eyes and red bows, Aristea, looks cunningly, covering her mouth with her hand. The blonde-haired girl, Aristea, declares her intention to meet Vantade as a Sunshine class student. Aristea dramatically confronts dark-haired Vantade, vowing revenge for losing the protagonist vote, while Vantade simply wishes to pass through. Efna looks startled, wondering if these two kids are also going to fight, as Aristea points and calls out, "Look here." Aristea joyfully offers Vantade chocolate that Vantade loves so much, but Vantade notices there isn't any. With a wide grin, Aristea declares that the invisible chocolate is only visible to good children. Vantade looks down, confused and worried if he might be a bad child, because he cannot see the chocolate. Aristea demands Vantade take the invisible chocolate and yield the way to her, but Vantade remains hesitant. Efna observes, internally acknowledging Vantade is a good child, and that Aristea is training him, as Aristea shakes Vantade's hand and tells him to step aside. Vantade looks at Aristea with a hesitant, Vantade's foot lifts off the ground, a distinct uh-oh, signaling an impending misstep. A splash sound effect confirms Vantade has fallen into the imaginary water. Vantade lies on the floor, having fallen from the imaginary bridge, as Efna and Aristea watch in silence. Vantade cries out to Efna that he fell into the water, and Efna immediately rushes to save him. The red-haired emperor, looking concerned, remarks on the future of the empire, given such incidents. Efna tells the red-haired emperor, "Your Majesty," not to worry, explaining that children naturally fall as part of growth, before cutting herself off in surprise. Efna looks up at the towering red-haired emperor, who smiles down at her with a regal presence. This text is a promotional advertisement for a special offer on a credit card. It highlights benefits like earning 75,000 bonus miles after spending $4,000 in the first 3 months, 2 times miles on all purchases, and an annual $100 travel credit. It also mentions a 0% intro APR for 12 months, no foreign transaction fees, and a $95 annual fee. The ad uses terms like unlimited rewards, unforgettable travel, and flexible redemption options to entice potential customers. It encourages applying now to take advantage of these benefits. This text is promotional content. Efna is seen dragging the red-haired emperor by his arm outside the school building. Efna questions the red-haired emperor's presence at the kindergarten, but he instead compliments her arm strength and asks if she considered joining his direct night order. Efna apologizes for her rudeness to the red-haired emperor, then cautiously suggests that a sudden visit from a guardian might startle the children. The red-haired emperor smiles confidently, his striking red hair and regal attire sparkling. The red-haired emperor states he needs to clear his head to work and asks Efna to serve him a cup of tea. Efna internally wonders why the red-haired emperor is contemplating the empire's future at a kindergarten, then has a sudden realization. Inside a counseling room with tea and pastries, Efna asks the red-haired emperor his plans, to which he replies with concerns for the empire's future and the welfare of those little rats. Chibi Efna sighs, finding the red-haired emperor's little rats comment harsh for a kindergarten discussion. Efna agrees to the red-haired emperor's plans as long as he obtains permission from the principal. Efna starts to explain the difficulty of getting the principal's permission, but the red-haired emperor interrupts, revealing he already secured it quite agreeably. Efna sighs in exasperation, her eyes closed. A lavish tiered dessert set, complete with a teapot and cup, is meticulously arranged. Efna stands surprised by the luxurious dessert set from Shimsong Salon, noting its rarity. The red-haired emperor smiles, announcing that the entire dessert spread is for Efna. The red-haired emperor invites Efna to visit often as a guardian, telling her to sit comfortably, then corrects himself upon seeing her already seated and about to eat. Efna looks slightly bewildered, holding her fork as the red-haired emperor stands smiling beside her. The red-haired emperor states his willingness to cooperate with any potential scandal if they are caught together privately at the kindergarten. Efna is left speechless, her expression conveying shock and bewilderment. The red-haired emperor confirms that the principal gave permission and all other teachers have gone home, to Efna's dismay. The red-haired emperor asks if he should bring a spare chair from the staff room, implying he plans to stay. The red-haired emperor leans in to tell Efna that he came to visit a place he intends to frequent often. The red-haired emperor internally expresses the immense worries of his position, stating his mind won't calm down easily. The red-haired emperor leans closer to Efna, asking her to take good care of him in the future, leaving Efna looking startled. Efna internally considers that it wouldn't be appropriate to ask the principal to remove the emperor now, surrounded by tea sets. The scene shifts to the exterior of the kindergarten, as a C-A-A-A-W sound punctuates the atmosphere. Efna looks frantic upon hearing that teacher Filinina collapsed, and that there are numerous typos in the school festival invitations. Efna stands overwhelmed by the news that the uniform workshop can't meet the deadline and an error exists in the planning document sequence. Efna, feeling mentally and physically weak, contemplates simply collapsing under the immense pressure. Efna realizes with dread that if she were to give up, the school festival would truly be ruined. Efna efficiently delegates tasks, instructing staff to address typos, find new costume workshops, and bring her the planning document for review. Other staff members praise Efna as amazing, recognizing her as the indispensable founding member and symbol of Rondell Kindergarten. Two female staff members encourage each other not to succumb to overwork, vowing to do their best for the school festival. Efna raises her hand enthusiastically, rallying everyone to work hard for the upcoming school festival. The narrator observes the passage of time, despite continuous misfortunes, over a tranquil image of the kindergarten building. A banner for the Rondell Kindergarten School Festival is displayed, as a grand carriage suggests the event is about to commence. A brown-haired staff member confirms the loudspeaker setup is complete and asks Efna if she's ready, as Efna wearily sips from a cup. Efna takes a resolute step forward, preparing to begin the festival activities. Efna stands on a beautifully lit stage beside a glowing purple orb on a pedestal, ready for the ceremony. Efna holds the glowing purple orb close, taking a deep breath before the main event. Efna addresses the audience, thanking them and instructing them to be careful as the lights will dim and to move in an orderly fashion. Behind the curtains, Efna observes Maxion, Marin, and Aristea watching Vantede happily eat his chocolate. A mother asks an artist to ensure her child is drawn well, while the artist confidently reassures her he has covered this festival 4 times. Two mothers chat, one asking if young Master Husheli is first, and the other confirming he's diligently practiced dancing. A parent remarks on the children's greatly improved stamina, expressing excitement about her own child. Efna stands under a single spotlight, holding the glowing purple orb, as a narrator describes this as the most faculty-stressful stage. A close-up shows Efna holding the glowing purple orb, her expression composed and focused. The announcement of Rondell Kindergarten School Festival opening is dramatically interrupted by the silhouette of an armored knight appearing in a doorway. Efna looks up in shock and confusion at the sudden appearance of armored knights, wondering why they are from the Grand Temple. Efna questions the presence of armed soldiers at a kindergarten, as one of the knights formally addresses her as Lady Efna Windister. A knight's spear is pointed at Efna as they announce receiving an important tip that she is a dark mage. Efna reacts with wide-eyed shock and confusion, asking for clarification on the accusation. The audience murmurs in surprise, identifying the knights as the Saint's direct order and questioning the accusation of a dark mage. Efna vehemently denies any knowledge of dark magic, calling the tip absurd, but the knight insists, "The Saint personally pointed you out." A close-up on Efna's chest emphasizes the crushing weight of the sudden and serious accusation. A figure with flowing pink hair stands amidst a swirling purple aura, an internal thought bubble pondering, "Lillian?" A sword point is directed downwards, as a voice calmly commands, "Please comply with detention and investigation, my lady." Efna stands between two heavily armored knights, appearing resigned to her fate. A promotional banner from Karatoon announces recruitment for Korean translators, proofreaders, and editors, inviting applications via Discord. A promotional banner from Siren Scans encourages readers to access up to Chapter 20 on their website and support their work for continued translations. A glowing purple orb rests on a wooden floor as Efna begins an internal thought. Efna looks distraught, vehemently protesting that she is not some kind of dark magician. The knight dismisses Efna's protests, telling her to address the Saintess directly and to proceed as the audience murmurs in confusion about Efna. Efna stands silently, her expression conveying deep distress and helplessness. Efna internally decides to go willingly, not wanting the children to be scared by seeing her dragged away. A knight dismisses Efna's concern for the children, questioning her intentions and causing Efna to sigh in resignation. Efna is led away by the knights behind red curtains, observed by a deeply confused and alarmed Marin. Mirin frantically urges Maxion to get the teacher, emphasizing the knights are from the temple and he must act. "Wah!" Mirin cries out, lamenting that her daddy and big brother are both busy and unavailable to help. Vantade, clutching his chocolate, looks up at another dark-haired boy, asking with concern, "Big brother, what about teacher?" The dark-haired boy, presumably Vantade's brother, remains silent, offering no response. This scene abruptly shifts to a torch, casting light on a rough stone wall, creating an ominous atmosphere. The pink-haired Saintess in a grim dungeon irritably demands the place be cleaned, and a knight immediately agrees to rectify it for the Saintess. The pink-haired Saintess smiles slyly, addressing someone off-panel as her sister. Lillian greets a stunned Efna, remarking on her difficult journey, as Efna exclaims her name in shock. Efna, looking distressed, confronts Lillian about being accused of dark magic and questions her right to drag a noble to this place. Lillian observes that Efna, whom she refers to as Lillian, shows no fear. Lillian claims to have come out of genuine worry for her sister, then questions Efna's assertion of being a noble. Lillian dismissively remarks that someone like Efna could never truly be called a Windister. Lillian boasts of her new talent and her father's pleasure, then mocks Efna for lacking any talent, calling it pitiful. Efna internally protests, recalling her recent monster defeat, but decides it's strategically unwise to mention that now. Efna, thinking carefully, asks Lillian if she might be mistaken about the accusation of dark magic. Lillian replies with a smug smile, implying Efna is habitually prone to misunderstandings. Lillian scathingly remarks on Efna acting as if she were a true daughter of their family. The narrator observes Lillian's actions are meant to provoke, as Lillian then reacts with surprise, asking what was said to her. Efna, with a mocking smile, questions Lillian about her status in Efna's mother's family register, implying Lillian desperately desires it. Lillian reacts with a shocked cry, while Efna looks down, a subtle smile playing on her lips amidst glowing purple flowers. A hand clenches tightly as the speaker internally rejects a thought, muttering, "No, that's not right." Lillian, smiling menacingly, declares Efna's arrogance now allows her to interrogate Efna about being a dark magician without guilt. Efna, seated, confidently challenges Lillian to search her, promising she'll find nothing. Lillian presents a paper, asking Efna if she remembers it, causing Efna to react with confusion and worry. An intricate, glowing paper with a complex dark pattern is revealed. A younger Efna is shown looking confused at a similar paper in a flashback. Lillian reveals she placed the intricate paper, designed to detect dark magic, and can track every moment Efna touched it, despite Efna's protests. An enraged Chibi Efna shouts in disbelief at Lillian's manipulative claims. Lillian smiles, announcing something else found among Efna's belongings, as a knight stands by with a torch. Lillian holds up a red book, smiling, and cryptically remarks, "That's." Efna, recognizing the red book as a past side story she found, wonders why it's a problem, then has a sudden realization. An open book displays a dark magic symbol, as an author's note acknowledges reader curiosity about it. The author's clumsy drawing of the dark magic symbol is met with a frustrated exclamation of, "You damned author." The image conveys a sense of rising tension and distress. Lillian, gloating that her arrogant sister is speechless from the evidence, then commands the knights, while Efna internally fumes at the author's narrative twist. Lillian instructs two knights to thoroughly interrogate Efna, calling her a dark magician, until she confesses. Lillian encourages a knight to be thorough in the interrogation, and the knight respectfully assents to the saintess. Efna's face is etched with distress, her eyes teary as she calls out Lillian's name. A knight, holding an intimidating tool, commands Efna to confess, sarcastically noting how she has knights wrapped around her finger and calling her Efna Velchester. Efna looks at the thorny branches, realizing they are interrogation tools, and panics internally, fearing for her life. Efna's bound hands tremble in fear and distress. Efna internally debates confessing, thinking that only movie protagonists endure torture in silence. Cheerful scenes from the kindergarten highlight its success, crediting teacher Efna for increased academy acceptance and the highest evaluation, as children call out for teacher. 3 chibi children, including a pink-haired one, excitedly reach out, expressing their eagerness. Efna considers confessing, as the knight insists she, Efna Velchester, confess verbally. Efna, with a defiant expression, boldly tells the knight to do whatever he wants, calling him a worthless knight bastard. The scene intensifies with a sudden, sharp visual effect. Lillian smugly asks a chained Efna if she's more willing to confess now. Efna's face is distressed and tearful as she utters Lillian's name. Lillian, with a smile, coldly dismisses Efna, telling her to eat shit. Lillian, observing Efna's continued defiance, instructs Sir Helix to continue the interrogation, and he complies with the saintess. Efna's eyes are tightly closed, showing signs of pain or immense exhaustion. Efna's body trembles uncontrollably from the ordeal. Grand Duke Hildebrand, a dark-haired man in regal attire, appears, raising questions about his presence.